And that's why I love you. Don't be afraid. Let them show your true colors. True colors, beautiful, like a rainbow. So you're sitting down to watch another one of my podcasts. That's great. Thank you. If you want to support the podcast, you would go to www.blxck.com.au and buy some merch. It's month to month. If you see it and you like it and you don't get it next month, it's not going to be there. Ah, well, now you know how to support the show. For now, enjoy the podcast with Mr. Brendan Kelly.
It's a book about short stories because I want to write short stories so people who didn't feel obliged to have to read a novel.
Work the whole thing.
Yep. So all of these stories have got the human condition. There's love, there's death, there's weirdness, there's a bit of supernatural in there with willies coming over football games. But every story's got a football game in it. Right. A reference to the capriciousness of the bounce of the oval ball. So the ball bounces and it can go. Well, you've seen footy.
Yeah. Anywhere.
I'm not a footy player, and I'm a casual football observer and fan. But I thought I'd use the metaphor of the bouncing ball as life. Yeah. So anyway, I think there's 16 short stories in there, and it was basically I got it out last year, but had a few disturbances in between. My old mum passed away, so I wasn't able to promote it like I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Just as I got the boxes of books, Mum was in the last week or so I ended up not having a launch. But beside the point, it's written, it's there, it's done.
Common language as well, by the look of it.
There's a glossary right in the back that I stuck in there for the unknown people.
Shirt front,
yeah. But
IGA, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a great story. Jimmy Jett and Brown Dog at IGA. It's about a bloke. It's set in Kerry Park.
Right.
It's actually at the IGA and the Oval next door. It's a bit mythical, but story about a couple of boys and how they play footy with the dog.
Right.
And the dog dies in the end because he gets old, and they bury him on the wing.
Interesting. Actually, I picked up a book while we were in Victoria last week. I picked up a book, and it was a kid's book that you don't read to kids.
Oh yeah.
And it goes. It's like this, and it's like 20 words a page, full picture book. So it's a picture book for adults, and it's like the first thing is this dude gets picked on at school, and then second page he goes to TAFE and he doesn't do the thing that he wants to do, and he ends up getting a job that he doesn't really like, and then he ends up getting a missus and she cheats on him, and then he gets cancer, but he lives, and then it's like a series of realistic unfortunate events that are not meant to, like at the back you're like, this is a grim book, and then you read the very last page and it's like, this is a reality of life. And it's not to assume that you're going to live a Disney movie life, is you're actually probably going to have your heart broken multiple times. You're going to live. You're going to be a human having a human experience. And don't ever read this to a kid.
That's what that's about.
Feels very akin to that.
There's a bit of tragedy. There's have a read. Let me know.
Yeah, for sure.
I think you'll enjoy it because from what you've just described, the human condition, the ups and downs, the capriciousness of that bouncing ball.
Yeah.
It tells you all about life. Just when you thought it was safe to swim, the sharks came around and bit off your limbs. Yeah, that type of thing.
Dude, are you aware of my social media presence at all?
No.
All right. Hang on, before we get into it.
I need to get into you though because I'm interested.
I've got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
And that's part of the whole purpose really. Now, this arm is completely adjustable.
Yep.
If you want to get that right up in front of you, do it. Do the thing. One little recommendation I give is get yourself tucked right in and pull the thing right back, because if you get comfortable here and then halfway through you start leaning back, it stuffs with the listener's perspective. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
I'm going to lean back. Yeah, that's all good.
Beautiful. But yeah, the one thing I do on Monday mornings, every Monday morning, is I do like a Monday motivation where I get on there and just off the dome, I start recording and I say, maybe you're not feeling it. Now's the time to lean in and do it.
Yeah.
You know, or whatever the motivation might be. And literally it's usually whatever I've like adapted from my readings, whatever I'm reading at the time, whether it be, you know, inspirational, motivational, you know, deep stuff, the Bible, whatever it is that's going on. I tend to just say, this is kind of what's going on in my mind. Maybe it applies to you, maybe it doesn't. Fucking here it is for free.
Here it is for free.
But I think the big thing that the continuity that I have with people who actually digest these messages on Monday morning is that life is not meant to be easy. It's never meant to be easy. It's it's easy right now. It's easy right now, right? It's easier than it's ever been before right now, unless you believe in, I'm not going to get into that, but the reality is like we're really not meant to have Netflix, and we're not meant to have porn, and we're not meant to have these really easy dopamine giving situations.
I'm with you.
You're meant to struggle most of it. That's the whole point.
You got to make it yourself.
Lean into the struggle. Be comfortable struggling, you know? And it's like even I have a false perception of how great life is and how awesome all these beautiful things are. You think I don't stay awake at night wondering how it's going to work, what sort of parent I'm going to be, what happens when the people that I love die? No. All these things are very real and are very not constant, but they're there, you know?
Just life is real.
Life is very real. And yeah, I think by the sounds of it, your book sort of highlights the reality of reality.
Yeah, well, you'll see it when you read it. As I said, it's ideal because it's short stories. You don't have to read it cover to cover. You can pick, number 7 out. I recommend you start with Jimmy Jet and Brown Dog at the IGA.
It's very easy to remember that, so I definitely will.
Yeah,
I'll breathe that in. That looks like a one-sit read. Yeah.
Well, one of the stories, Jimmy D. Jimmy D was shortlisted in the Peter Cowan Short Story Awards in WA.
Okay.
So I got into the short list out of 600.
Yep.
So I was pretty pleased that I got there. And I, as a writer, you like to have somebody say, "Well, fuck, that's good, Brent."
Yeah.
But sometimes when you're writing for a mythical audience, you think, is this what they want to hear, or am I telling them something that they already know? That type of thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a food for thought. Maybe we can do something with it at another time.
I think that whole. So you're speaking from the perspective of a creator, right? So I have this with clothing. Do I make things that I think people want to wear, or do I make things that I want to wear that they will respond to? Am I a thought leader or am I a thought provider?
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Right?
Nice.
And I think that's what you speak to there. Am I going to write something that people enjoy reading, or am I writing something that's true to me that people have to experience because of me?
Yep. That brings it down to leadership, doesn't it? I've got a few thoughts on leadership as well. Leadership is
elaborate.
Well, for starters, leaders are born. I think you can learn how to become a better leader. If you're not a leader, and you don't have that intrinsic leadership in you, that innate leadership, then all the Australian Institute of Management in the world won't help you out. Having said that, everybody has a component of leadership.
Okay.
So when you're born with it, you're either born with it up here, or you're born with it down there, or you're born with the ability to develop it. But I've written a thing called Random Thoughts on Leadership, which was just a little thing that I knocked up quite a while ago. It's got, 15, 16 points on it. One of them is leadership. Power is not leadership.
I agree. Agree. That's
well, it's a bit twee in some respect, but I've been a student of leadership, and I'll just finish on that. When I was a kid, my grade 6 teacher wrote on my report, "Brendan is a born leader," and almost automatically, upon adolescence, I rejected it. I rejected this because I was rejecting a whole bunch of stuff that people were telling me. And it took me another, 30 years to wake up to the fact that, shit, mate, you are a leader. People come and ask you stuff. Can you tell me how this works, or what do you think I should do?
Yeah.
And it took me a long, long time to come to terms with the fact that there was this sort of ability, whatever it is, this leadership ability. And it's an interesting thing because when my dad died years and years ago, somebody came up to me at his funeral, big funeral, because he knew a lot of people. He said, "Oh, your father attracted people."
interesting.
And I'm thinking, oh, okay. And he had that innate leadership as well. People came to him because they thought that he was some sort of light. Not to say that this is Jesus, by the way, I mean, or God or whatever one believes in. But there are people around who have charisma, can we call it that?
Yeah.
Who attract people who look to that person to lead. And there's a few of them been in the world stage. Obama, for some people, Putin for others.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's been many, many. But anyway, that's another conversation.
I've got like 16 conversations to have just off what you've just said. I think it's really interesting, the separation between power and leadership. Because some people have a desire for leadership, some people have a desire for power, and some people have a desire for both and none and end up in these positions.
Yes.
Right? So there's so many different like legs that you can go on there. I think the one thing that I'll pretentiously say, I've found myself in a position of potential future leadership, and I feel like in a particular way I see myself as a thought leader. I try and I have a lot of conversations, especially on this podcast, where people say, you know, we have conversations about what the future could look like for yourself as a person, for Bunbury, for your community, for the groups you're involved in, for Australia, for the world. And, you know, the question always comes down to, well, how do you do this? How do you make it happen? And I think the most consistent thing that I've come up with, because I don't know the answer. I'm 32 years old. 6 years ago, I was a truck driver. I don't know, right? But the thing that I come down to is, well, I have a microphone now and people listen to what I say into that microphone. So the one thing that I can do is keep me sharp. And then communicate that sharpness and hopefully be a leader in thoughts, so that the conversations that people have with themselves help them accept themselves and help them understand what position they play in all of this, understanding simple things like having a vote and knowing how powerful that is, and being able to actually do your research and vote with the power that you have to make a difference, whether it's politically, whether it's deciding who's the captain of a sports team, all the way up to who's the captain of our country.
Nice analogy there.
I think
I like that.
This starts with how you perceive yourself. And I've perceived myself as a pure piece of shit and as the leader of everything. In my life, at least.
Between the two.
I understand the spectrum.
Do you have a bell curve on it?
100%. 100%. The more you start leaning into yourself, the easier life becomes.
Yes.
You know?
I got to agree with that. And I've had a bit of experience at it.
It's funny. I want to ask about your experience in it, because I think there's a wealth of information there that would be valuable to me and the listener. One thing that I've realized just this morning is I've been having conversations. I try and have a lot of conversations as frequently as I can with as many people as I can. And whether it's a menial conversation about nothing or whether you're talking about how to change the world, there's value in everything. And if you treat yourself as the dumbest person in the room, there's always something to learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Never ever is there anything that you can't learn from going somewhere. Even the 1%er. The 1%er is just like a globe of light.
Right. I ask myself, I'm always trying to like dig to like the foundational level of the difference or the thing between the person that I don't understand and me. And the people that I don't understand at the moment, this is going to sound pretentious, but it's a thing that I've sort of realized, and it's a very undiscovered thought. It's just something that's like, maybe this is it. The people that I have the most contention with are the people who see the world the way it is. The Steve Jobs quote. The world that you know was made up by people who are no smarter than you. Everything in my world is malleable. Everything is negotiable. There is nothing too expensive. There is no mountain too high. And the people that I have contention with don't even look at the mountain because they don't see themselves as mountain climbers.
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. And of course, you've got to look at nature as well, the environment. I mean, the miracle of the creation, if you like to call it that. I mean, I get blown away just looking at stuff. Like I used to have a saying like, what have you been doing today, Brendan? I've been out watching moss. Watching moss? What the? Well, there was a riverbank and it was a shady side, and underneath that shady side of the riverbank is a universe. And in it is moss. And across the moss are insects, and they've got their whole world, their whole universe is in that riverbank, that type of stuff.
Dude, you had so I get this on camera, you didn't watch the most previous episode of this, did you?
No.
I had a continuous metaphor that I came back to over crying over looking at these flowers because I can't believe them.
Ah, right, okay.
So it's kind of uncanny that you're saying that I watch moss,
Yeah. Well, moss is good to watch. And when you look at it, if you look at it through a magnifying glass or a microscope, there's a universe, absolute universe in there. There's a universe in everything that is minute. As much the same as the universe is so big. You can't you can't differentiate between the bigness of the universe and the minuteness of the universe. They are the same.
The pattern repeats itself.
Just keep going back one way or the other. It's like that bell curve or that spectrum that you're talking about.
Right.
You can go infinitely small or you can go infinitely large.
Yeah.
And it's all part of the one thing.
How powerful do you want to feel? As depends on which way you go on that spectrum as well. You know?
Yeah, well, power. Yeah, I feel good every morning. I went and had a look at the ocean this morning, looked at that horizon, and in a way it was curving away, and I'm thinking, that's pretty neat. That's pretty neat.
100%. Sometimes I like. I'm a part of a select bunch of social. What would you call it? Social groups. You know,
Yep.
Friday morning we go rucking, and Saturday morning we go running with different groups. You know, Wednesday morning I have church group. There's different things that I'm involved with, and I'm always so intrigued about the difference but similarity that every group has in its own way.
Yep.
You know, like the Run Club in its own way is church.
Yep.
It's crazy, you know.
You've got a purpose.
Oh, and the purpose that it gives the individual and the purpose that the individual gives the group.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, and there's a collective in that. And I've got another little saying, Jake, never be bored, never be boring. And I've never had any problem with the first bit. I've never been bored.
Yeah.
Being boring is up to other people to make a judgment.
Yeah.
But if you're not bored yourself and you're always exploring, then other people are going to look and say, okay, that's pretty interesting. He's not boring. So in the groups, whether they be church groups, nature groups, running groups, even sporting, whatever the case may be, you've got a purpose. A purpose is to stay stimulated, stay collective, and that's very important. To be part of a collective is human nature. It's civilization, really, when you think about it. So I'm a great fan of being with people and knowing people and trying to commune along the way. Everything you do, there's no point in sitting out in the backyard doing nothing. Mind you, I do that, Jake.
Has its place.
It has its place. I've got a pet rabbit.
Okay.
Not that I got the pet rabbit, but my better half, she kidnaps any animal that looks lost within a mile.
Yeah.
So
hey, come on, you're coming home.
This little black rabbit ended up in the backyard. Victor, his name is. And we've had him for about 5 years. And that's one of the joys of it, going out the backyard, sitting under the lemon tree, and the rabbit will come up for a pat. So, you know, he's a being. I suppose, in a way, every critter is someone. And that's part of the kindness of the world, that you should treat not only the world, the planet, but every critter on it with some sort of empathy. One shouldn't really sort of, don't be cruel.
Yeah, there's definitely it's like you don't necessarily have to be good, but just don't be bad.
Yeah, and I think that's an adage that everybody can live by. I mean, you've got your part on it, your own consciousness on the planet. Your own consciousness in the world is really important for the collective. Again, I use the word again. We are a collective. And it's a bit like elections in Australia. At the moment, Australia is very blessed. We have compulsory voting. So, you know, everybody votes from one end to the other. But the idea that we have 151 people in the national parliament to represent us is a wonderful thing. And everybody from 18 to 108 has that vote.
Yep.
And I think that it's really important for people not to get turned off by the idea of politics, particularly in the federal sphere. As a collective, we've got to have somebody to represent us. We've got 151 positions. Democracy in Australia wasn't set up for a party, one party or another party. It should never be like that. Every one of those 151 electorates needs to appoint somebody to make sure that they can represent their area and they take their voice off to Canberra. It's not about having a centralised system where perhaps one party or another says, well, this is the way the party thinks. That's therefore that thought pattern is transferred upon an electorate somewhere. Yeah. Whether it be my electorate of Forest or somewhere in Dixon or somewhere in Brand, it doesn't matter where they are.
Yep.
So I've always been saying to people, or I do say to people, look, you know, you're only one voice, but your voice counts, and you got to make sure who you appoint to channel you in Canberra is the best candidate.
Yeah. Pause on that. I'm going to give you more light and calm this dog down.
Cool.
How are you doing this? I'm sorry.
All good.
Let me bring those eyes out. Lewis, come here, please.
Somebody arrived?
No, Carl went past.
Oh, is that all? Lewis.
Unnecessary bloody alarm system. Hey, come on. Come on.
Is our pace okay?
Beautiful.
Yep.
Beautiful. None of this is going to be cut out, by the way. This is raw.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
I like the communication of a real conversation.
Yep.
You know, and I think if you want to go the CNN route and take out the bites that are appropriate, then it's great. But also, like this like people are hungry for real.
Yes.
They're so hungry for real. We've been fucked on every angle from so many different places that it's like now I have no worry about this turning into the biggest thing, hopefully in Bunbury as far as media is concerned, because people just want to know.
I'll go back to what you said about conversation. It's something that when I was a kid, I don't want to get nostalgic, but even right through to the now, having a conversation was something that was very important in Australia. And, you know, the traditional way of mum and dad being at the dinner table. And the kids are there. When I was a kid, you had to say, "Oh, please, may I leave the table?" But the dining room table was the place for conversation. And it has changed. I'm not saying it's better, worse, or otherwise, but conversation has been usurped by the screen. And I do it myself. You know, I'll be sitting on the couch at home looking at the iPad while the television's on.
Classic.
And the other half is in the other part of the couch.
Yeah.
You know, and she might be looking at a screen as well.
Yeah.
And we're not conversing. And it's worthwhile knowing that conversation can feed the soul better than a screen. And I think as people take time out from the screen, find somebody to have a conversation, it will do them good.
The byproduct of making this podcast important, and for me, you know, for something that makes me no money, that takes a lot of time and a lot of energy, and I've had to upgrade my computer and buy lights and buy this table and take up a section. Like, the byproduct is I get eye contact with someone. I get 2 hours of just being able to, I mean, you heard before, I'd love to rant, like, this is my idea, I thought about it this morning. I think that I see the world as malleable, you know? And like, Larissa can only take so much of that, you know? And it's nice to be able to just like, you know, there's this cafe in Bendigo that has the art of conversation written on it as you drive down the main street. And I've seen that a dozen times throughout my life, driving to go and have lunch with my nana, which we do once a year, you know? And that made no sense to me until about 5 years ago. And now it makes more sense every podcast that I do. Because the art of having to listen and respond and be confident and commit your words to the internet, which lives forever. How beautiful, you know, like how invigorating to actually just like be put on the spot and be like, what do you feel about this? Well, here's how I feel about it.
I wonder if they teach that. I look back at education, again, going back to education, let's say since World War II, before I was born, modern education from, say, 1946 to 2026, let's just draw a line under that for the moment, and how things have changed so much where at one stage in my early times, we didn't even have calculators. Certainly didn't even have we didn't have computers, full stop. We weren't dreaming of all this stuff. And then suddenly we had this massive technological advance with the internet and everybody having a screen. And I wonder to some extent how the formal education people, the other people who devise curriculum and all of those type of things, sat there and said, right, we're going to have to adjust here. How do we maintain human conversation, human intercourse, if you like, the ability of one person to speak with another with the eye contact that you just mentioned? Do we have to do that, or are we just going to let it happen? Did they just let technology happen and say, this is the way the world is, let it run?
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that. I'm not close enough to it. But certainly if we had a lot of clever educationalists out there who are saying to each other, well, whoa up here a little bit. Let's have a screen-free day at school. Let's get people outside and say, right, today we're going to have conversation. Pair up with your best mate and talk.
So I think this goes to a wider thought, right? So before you spoke about people are born with innate leadership skill or ability, not skill, right? Because I believe talent is something you're born with, and skill is something that you develop through practice.
That's correct.
Now, up until 5 years ago, I could not do a wheelie. And then as a 27-year-old, 28-year-old, I had had enough.
Yep.
I'm going to learn how to do wheelies. And I obsessed about it to the point that I dreamt about it.
Yep.
And when I dreamt about it, I could do a wheel. I actually made a Facebook post in the morning that I woke up because it was so real to me. I said, I just dreamt that I wheelied around a block and I slowed down and I could turn and I almost came to a stop and then I'd keep going. And I can now do wheelies that good.
Yeah, right.
I can do wheelies surprisingly well to a point where you're like, holy, you can do a wheelie. You know what I mean? Like that's and I mean, come to a stop and keep going. I can do death spins both directions. I can play in traffic, and I do every day.
Yeah, right.
The important thing about this is I was not born with that skill. I decided I wanted it. I saw it. I put faith into the idea of it happening, and I practiced it until it fucking happened.
Yep.
You know, it's that important to me.
And now you're the central wheelist.
Now I'm the guy. All right. And I think the thing that we're kind of going into here is you go, well, the ability to have a conversation, I think, is a talent that all of us have, but it develops into a skill the more of it you do.
Yes. Yes, and I think that's worthwhile for people who are perhaps listening to this podcast, if they're going to take a moment out and say, right, I'm going to go out and practice conversation. It could be on the person over the road. And I'll say here, I don't think of people I don't think of people as age. I think of people as people. Mm-hmm. And I think that if somebody is wanting to have a conversation, there are a million places out there to go and practice.
100%.
And you go down to the shopping centre, down here at the Plaza in Bunbury, give them a plug. You can see somebody and then suddenly stop and have a conversation. I'd do it. Whether or not it be with somebody who's providing you with a loaf of bread or a lotto ticket or whatever it happens to be. Practice is opportunistic, and it's always out there. It doesn't matter. And I think people do appreciate that. Of course, there's an approach that's got to be made too. You don't want to look like a mugger.
Yeah.
If you're going to have a conversation with somebody, you don't want to scare the bejesus out of them for starters.
Yeah.
Or startle them. Yeah, right. But yeah, you are correct here, Jake. In trying to be better, in trying to improve your consciousness, enhance your consciousness, to be a better person in yourself, to have a better impression of yourself, you've got to go out and have conversations. You've got to suck it in. You got to realize that other people's consciousness is there for you, also to improve your own.
Yeah,
and I think it's not hard. Conversation, I think we've come across something. Conversation over the screen. I think that's probably worthy of a treatise on that. Somebody will do a PhD on it.
Dude, and the skill that I'm now trying to adapt is the ability to generate the correct prompt for AI to do the job that I want to do.
AI. Well, that's been a controversial subject for a lot. I use it in different ways.
If you don't.
Yeah, it's like I'll make a point here. AI is like a good axe. You can still chop your foot off.
Yeah.
But you can do a really good job at cutting your wood. Mm-hmm. I've been amazed by AI and how it's gone so quickly. And I know a friend of mine, or an acquaintance, actually a colleague of mine, who is set up with our department to start using AI for some of the more I suppose drummy tasks that are required when you need a file note, for example, or you need a position or a policy document. You can put in the draft thoughts, and AI will come out with that policy document. My colleague, who is a medium, she actually has medium abilities.
Okay.
Now, we'll park that for a while. What's a medium? What's a clairvoyant? Who's somebody who can channel the past or channel another person or channel something? Mm-hmm. She has started to train her AI to react to her ability as a medium. So she's feeding it her medium ideas so it can come back and say, well, you are thinking this way because. Now,
Interesting.
I don't profess to understand it, but AI as a tool is massive, and it gets more massive every day. It's on an algorithm, an exponential, that is extraordinary. In another 5 years, I can't even imagine what it's going to be like. But if you perhaps as a podcaster, as a person who likes conversation, you could almost see AI having a conversation with you, the human across the desk, and AI is leading you to think even better than you're thinking now.
Shall we do a little case study?
I'm always happy for a case study anywhere.
So
it's a remarkable thing.
Good morning. I was just wondering if you would like to be a podcast guest on my podcast today.
Good morning. That sounds like a lot of fun. Tell me more about your podcast. What's it about, and what would you like to discuss?
And so on. And so on.
It's already been done, has it, Jake?
Okay, so you can give my podcast to AI.
Yes.
And then say, you understand Jake, you understand his voice, his tonality, the types of things that he talks about. I want you to generate a podcast, not only as the guest, but as Jake as well.
Ah, right. So in my imagination that was happening, I'm way behind. My imagination is a couple of steps behind people who are already doing this.
There are people producing podcasts that are AI talking to AI.
Cool.
That have followings.
Okay, well.
There are people who have AI porn stars that are getting monthly subscriptions from fans who are paying for the content.
Yeah, right. So is it possible to put AI or to ask AI to be God?
Yeah, of course.
And the AI would come out, right, this is God speaking.
This is what we're doing, yeah.
Okay. That would be a remarkable advance. And I talk about algorithms and exponentials, particularly in physics. And I'm no physicist, Jake, but
sure?
I do understand the concept of infinity, and how things can keep going forever and ever and ever. And I had this little theory, which I think I might explain. The idea of infinity or eternity is big in Catholicism. Now, I'm really lapsed as a Catholic, but I came up with this little theory, and it was quite some time ago, that the probability of us having this conversation right now was there at the beginning of the universe.
Right.
The fact that we're having this conversation and will have had this conversation will be there at the end of the universe.
Right.
So there's your definition of eternity.
Right. Yeah. And it's only at a like a, I don't know the words, like the dimensional perspective that it makes sense, given that time works like this way, but when you put it on its front or to the side, then it's all happening at the same time infinitely as well.
Yep.
And now that I don't understand.
And we don't need to understand it. It's the marvel of being able to imagine it or to conceptualize it. And I think for people who want to be richer in life, there's nothing wrong with conceptualizing the things that they see around them. And if we went to the Bible, for example, marvelous book used by many speech writers over thousands of years, I would guess. Winston Churchill, for example, he plucked things out of the Bible at will, so that he could make great speeches. Smart man. And there are other people who do it. I mean, Proverbs in the Bible, if you only ever had to read one book of the Bible, you'd read Proverbs. Not that I'm a Bible expert, but
Interesting, yeah.
Because it comes up with those adages, those things that you think, oh, yeah, that's obvious. Another one, William Shakespeare. Shakespeare was a great grabber of proverbs from the Bible as well. Just switch them around a little bit, put them in your own voice, and wow, they say, well, William Shakespeare, he was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So was Winston Churchill, and everybody in between, of course, who have used it as a source of literature. And, we all do it. You'll see something that's written and then think, wow, that's a great line. I wonder how I could say it a different way.
Yeah, well, I mean, what is it? Good artists create and great artists steal?
Yes.
100%.
I wonder if that was in Proverbs. I'm not sure if it was. But it's the way. And it comes back to, if you live in Bunbury and you live right here on this spot, there is always something to look around you for inspiration. There's ability to create. I walk around the big swamp here, and I'll see, I don't know, 20 different types of birds. I'll just call it 20 for one of the sake. And they're all shaped differently and they're all coloured differently. And I'm thinking to myself, I wonder what that critter's thinking.
Yeah.
And again, going back to it, every critter is someone.
Yeah.
And it's a concept that I look around me and I think to myself, well, I get inspiration every day from what I see. Everything from wildlife back to my rabbit. Or my chickens for that amount, although they squabble a fair bit. So I can probably leave them out of it. But getting back to the consciousness of one, and I think that's where this conversation has sort of worked around, is that everybody has the ability to think and to think outside the screen, the commonplace, the things that we've all got used to, which you alluded to before. We've got all of these things around us and we're taking them as reality when we're sucking it in from the outside instead of projecting it from the inside. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that people need to remember is that within their own mind is a universe.
Correct.
Yoko Ono quote, in actual fact, if I can just go on to that. Yoko Ono once said, I may be small, but I have a universe in my head. And I think
Brilliant.
She was a conceptualist artist or a conceptual artist that was way, way beyond her time. Obviously known for the woman who broke up the Beatles, but hey, I think that if people remember that the real universe in their head is infinite and they can do whatever they like and explore places that perhaps they never thought of, is worthwhile remembering. And with the advantage of AI, you can go anywhere. I think people, when they use it, will go anywhere, providing they use it for good.
Yeah, look, I think there's so many points you touched on there. I think this, it's so easy to get into you go through childhood and adolescence in your adult years, and you sort of, like I said, you see the world the way it is. You have 5 senses, you have the walls that you live within, you have the paths that you walk down every day if you go for a walk, you have the workplace you go to, you have your car, you have your smells that you used to, you have your parents, you have your friends. And I think those boundaries, you ever played GTA before?
No.
Okay, so in GTA, you can only see on the map where you've been before. And the rest of it, it's a big circle, but it's dark. And if you haven't been there, you don't know it's there. You don't know what road's there, what buildings are where. You can only see where you've been. And our life is similar to that. I've been to Ballarat and I've been to this place in Europe and I've been to that place in Japan. So those spots are opened up on my map. And through Instagram, I can see this spot in America that I've never been to. And I can see this place in wherever and fill in the gaps, right?
Yep.
So you sort of feel like your map is expanding, and because of that, you're actually, the reality of that is kind of getting close. You don't have to leave your lounge room to get that experience, so you don't. And the real physical boundaries of your mind is now got so close because your screen has opened it up so much so, but in a faux sense.
Yes.
So what this does is then creates this idea that you're living, because you're sharing with your friends, and I got this perfect angle of me at this event, at this thing that means so much to me, and I'm sharing that with my friends, and now they kind of get a part of that and I give a part of it to them. But in reality, our maps are getting closer and closer and closer to the boundaries of our house.
Yes.
Now, I think the universe that you talk about in your mind, I don't see the exact connection to it, but there's something that sort of is relevant here to what I was saying before about wheelies. And it's that I saw in my mind what I wanted my reality to be.
Yes.
I decided that that's the reality, that it's going to be mine. I put faith in the fact that I can do that and I can execute that and I can practice that skill until it is my skill. And then I went and did it until I was done. And now that I'm in it and better than I've ever been, I realize that I'm just scratching the surface of what it could be.
Yes.
And then that replicates itself across any single thing that I want to achieve, whether it's a great business, being a great parent, being a leader in my town, being the leader of the world, whatever it is, I just got to decide what it is and then start having faith and doing it. Now, this falls back onto something that I believe that half of life is figuring out what you want to do and the other half is doing it.
Yes.
And doing it is if your life depends on it, because it does. Because your life depends on you doing the thing. Now, this falls into what you can see on the map as far as how much of the map do you want to see? Do you actually want to live this life? Do you want to live beyond your five senses? Do you want to explore the universe that starts in between your ears and then expands into infinite? Or do you want to live life through a screen?
Yeah. And really important, and I think the three most valuable words in the world are you are here. And I go back to that metaphor of doing the wheelies, the metaphor for everything we do. Once you've conceptualized what it is you want to do, it might exist outside, but you're the one doing it. It's working at it to make it happen. And to have faith, that's a big one. You've got to have that faith and that confidence. And if you use the metaphor of the wheelie to everything else you do, in trying to achieve something and mind achieving something better, I think that's a key criteria to what you want to do. You want to make something that is worthwhile, that is perhaps better, but certainly worthwhile. And I think being here, you are here, as I said, there's another T-shirt worn by Yoko Ono, by the way. I don't want to spend too much time on Yoko, but she is a living artist.
Yeah.
And as a living artist who was doing things before the screen, actually conceptualizing before the screen, she has to be seen as a pioneer. Some people might argue that her music is not exactly up to scratch, but certainly the concepts that she developed as an artist with Fluxus, actually, the movement was called Fluxus, and coming into a room where you were invited to do things that were outside of your ken, like one of them hammering an imaginary nail into an imaginary board. Why would you do that? You would only do it because somebody said you can do it, and it's there and gone. So I guess what I might be saying here is that there are things that you can do every day that might seem so inconsequential. They don't mean anything. They're ephemeral, here and gone. But hey, you've done it. And I think that's an important thing. You don't want to be frivolous about it, but everybody's got seconds and minutes in their lives that can be filled.
It's a practice of the thing that seems most apparent there is a practice of prayer, I think. Prayer, the relationship that I have with prayer has been quite interesting. When I was a child, it was a task, it was a duty. It then turned into a guilt thing. I had to pray every night, otherwise God would be upset with me. I'd have to pray that I didn't have bad dreams, that Osama bin Laden wouldn't get me, that my mum and dad would be healthy. Otherwise, if I didn't do it, Osama bin Laden would find me, my mum and dad would die, and I wouldn't live through the night. And then I got to a point of demonizing. I'm like, no, I'm not going to be held. I'm not going to be held at gunpoint. Like, you will pray. If God is everything, then He's not going to make me do that. I don't have time. I'm atheist. I don't want to know about it. And then 5-6 years ago, living in a caravan, starting this business, I decided for whatever reason to read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And as a non-reader, as someone who didn't really, to be honest, I had an entrepreneurial spirit, but I wasn't a businessman's asshole, and I knew that. I read this book, and it basically outlines how to have faith, how to put it into practice, how to execute. It was the same time I decided I'm going to do wheelies. Same time I decided Blxck was going to be something, right? And as part of that, as part of the process, it has this practice that is starting as soon as you wake up and right before you go to bed. You visualize and emotionally tie in spoken word to what you're trying to achieve. Sounds very prayer. Sounds very similar to prayer, doesn't it?
It does. Is there another word for prayer? Intonation. I'm not quite sure. I'll have to think about that. But
there is, I think. Yeah.
We're defining. We're looking at prayer as it was originally put, perhaps by whoever was thinking about the religion, praying to God, and using prayer as an intonation, a spell, if you like, to something out there that says, if I pray by speaking a wish, if you like, or a want, or a
desire,
some comfort, then that is not necessarily just praying to a God. It is actually extending yourself, your mind out to something that will go somewhere. I'm not quite sure where it is. It's a concept I haven't thought about, but prayer is valuable.
It's a wishing connection to the infinite awareness for a reality that you would like to achieve. Right?
I
It's
love
connecting yourself as a beacon, as an antenna to the thing that is greater than you, that is more powerful than you, that can give you what you want, as long as it's good.
Yeah.
You can ask for bad shit, but then you're connecting to another thing.
Yeah.
Good and evil. You know?
That brings in the good and evil of it. And it's all very metaphysical, this. Metaphysics being the systematic study of the ultimate nature of all things. And I sometimes I've gone on that journey over my life, and I come from another era. I remember before screen, before computers, and
just for the record, so do I. I was brought up without a phone. I was brought up without a computer. Right, that shit didn't come in until I was like 15.
Right,
I went to school with no computers up until I was in year 6.
Yeah, okay. Why was that?
92. That's when it happened.
Yeah.
I was also brought up in the Northwest up until I was 10, so there was a lot of technology that didn't make it that far up.
Yeah, gotcha.
You know,
Yeah.
it wasn't like I was in a city and computers were in.
Yep.
Like the first computer that was ever existing was in our classroom in year 5, and it wasn't used.
Yep. And that would have been in what year?
So year 5,
90.
we're probably talking like 98,
Yep. Gotcha.
something like that.
Okay. And I can recall the moment that we got computers in my office in 95.
Okay.
They came in there. There was a fair bit of /DOS / type thing to get it going.
Yeah.
But then we got Windows. And once Windows came, it was like magic. Somebody had just waved a magic wand.
Right.
And this whole, again, it's a whole universe has opened up. And now we're extended to AI, which is, basically infinite. I remember this particularly because coming from another world where we didn't have calculators. We didn't even have a TV when I was a kid because TVs weren't in Western Australia then. We listened to the wireless. Yeah. And I might add, Jake, just thinking about music, we had half a dozen AM stations back then on the wireless, and they were literally that. You had a dial and you had a knob that you turned it on and off. There was no touch screen or anything like that. Yeah. I can recall as a kid that it was almost you turn the radio on and there'd be a new sound. And it was a phenomenal time. And I don't want to hark back to the nostalgia because I don't do nostalgia.
Right.
But I can recall bands like the Beatles, the Stones, Dylan, Doors, Led Zeppelin. You can keep going on naming all of those great bands that played live, by the way, without computers. Yeah. By the way, that was another thing. Yeah, it's just the way they produced it. Every time I turned the radio on, I expected to hear something new. And I wonder now in 2025 if there are little kids like me then who are saying, I'm expecting something new.
What does the algorithm give you?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Something new, but just at a quicker cycle.
Yes. And is it new or is it something recycled from a different view?
Good artists create great artists.
If we take that point in the universe, that little point that's always been there, and look at it from 365 degrees or from every different angle, it's virtually infinite again because you go minute. You can go back. You can look at the same thing a different way an infinite number of times.
The butterfly has the same pattern on its wings, but in opposite whether you're looking at it from the front or back.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah. This I'm not sure how the audience on the podcast will be thinking about where we're going here, but I think if we boil it down, we're boiling it down to being people in our minds, our consciousness. We can look at the universe a million different ways, and there's no person on this earth who can think of every different way before they die.
Oh, is that not the greatest moment of salvation in your life when you realize that? You're like,
freedom.
I'm not going to hit it all.
Yep.
I'm just going to hit the stuff. And I'll tell you what, even the stuff that does just flash into my mind for whatever reason, I'm probably only going to pay attention to 10% of that.
Yep.
You know?
And that's the joy. I think that's the joy of living. You can't do it all. And I think that was something that I realized as a little kid as well. Again, not being nostalgia, but I go back to kindergarten. And I remember my mate, who was a great artist. He still is. He's still alive and he's still working. He used to create these great drawings on the butcher's paper is what we used in those days. And my drawings could never be the same. The paint would run, and then I'd look at it and think, no, it's ruined.
Yeah.
And then I'd try and do something else with it, and it never seemed to work out. Where am I going with this? I'm going there to say that human endeavour in the many things we can do are never going to be absolutely perfect. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be finished either. And when you finally, sort of get out of this world, there will be a whole bunch of things that will still be there for somebody else to do, and somebody else to do in an imperfect manner. That sort of went around in a corner, I think. But I'm quite happy to understand life now. Not perfectly, but people ask you, are you happy? And I'd say, well, I'm content. I'm content with knowing what I know, and I'm happy about being able to know more.
Yeah, continuing the learning process.
Yeah, there's no end to that. I think the idea of ongoing endeavour is something that everybody should keep in mind, and it's every day as well. What is this 24 hours going to bring me? How can I enhance that 24 hours so that I'm better, that I'm more informed, that I'm more satisfied and content with my life? Because today I saw a willy willy, a jitty jitty, flit across my back lawn and catch a butterfly.
Wow.
That moment is a moment of, I suppose, joy at the creation, if you like to put it that way.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
I hate the broken record nature of the word gratitude, but if you can wake up, like my prayers have less to do with business now and more to do with the sort of like essential tenets of living a successful or a productive or a life that I like to live, as being thankful that, like I got food last night, I got to sleep in my bed, I'm in love, we're trying for a family, my dog is amazing, my parents are still alive. Just thank you for another day of that. Just thank you for one more day. For the last 24 hours and the 24 hours it's happening, thank you. And whatever challenge you give me, you've given me the skills and the tools to overcome it. Thank you for that as well. Yeah.
And that reflection, Jake, I think is really important for people to reflect a little bit, maybe at night. And we did it when we were kids, thank you, God, for the day. Thank you, God, for mum and dad, etc. Maybe that was a little bit rote for us because that's the way we were taught.
But that's the purpose of being a parent.
True story.
It's to tie in these things. You don't have to understand why. You just have to just put the runs on the board for me.
Yep.
Okay? Because the same as if you want your kid to do wheelies, I know it's scary to pull the front wheel up. I know it's scary to hit the back brake. I know when you fall off it hurts, but we're just going to do this, and one day you're going to get it. And it might not be for 30 years, but one day you look back and say, I'm thankful that my parents made me thank God or whatever greater power, the infinite intelligence, just something greater than me, that today we got to live.
Yep. And it's all a case of what goes around comes around. You're quite right there. You've nailed that. Rote, for me, when I was a kid, might have been boring, and it might have been, oh, God, I've got to do this again. But ultimately, as I got into adulthood, it all came back. Chickens come back to roost, if you like to call it that. And I'm eternally grateful. I diverge a bit here, Jake. I did 3 years of Latin.
Wow, okay.
Believe it or not,
Latin. Talk to me. Interesting.
Face nihil tum requiescat.
All right.
Which is do nothing, then rest.
I thought you called me something cool then. I was in for it.
But if you had asked me while I was doing 3 years of Latin at high school, what do you think about that? I would have said it sucked badly. However, now that I'm an author, now that I write every day, I look at words and they never bleed the same way twice. Because I'm looking at a word that might come from Latin, and I'm looking at all of the subtleties about that word. And we use words in ironical sense. We use words to describe things. And in Australia, we use words that have got nothing to do with what we're talking about. Australian slang is very rich. That's another story. But I think that the rote of Latin, to get back to where I was starting here, was that I thought it sucked then. But now, gee, I'm so grateful somebody took the time to say, hey, listen, here's your Latin.
Yeah.
Not that I can speak it very well, Jake, but I will say in my career as a public servant, every now and then I would throw in a Latin phrase into a file note,
Yeah.
knowing that it's going to go up into the cloud and that somebody in 20 years is going to look back at it and say,
check
what
this out. Yeah.
But I think going back to that rope thing, the things that your parents taught you, where it may not have made any sense then, come back now, and that's a continuum, and a continuum in a way of civilization.
Yeah.
The reason we're civilized, the reason that we don't go out and do dumb things, or people do dumb things, that's human nature. But generally in Australia, we have a system. We have a system that works for better or for worse. There's no such thing as a perfect system, because that's why we have, I suppose, why we have jails. Is that people just cannot stay on that straight and narrow all the time, and then people fall foul of themselves, and we have human tragedy and sadness. But generally in Australia, we've got a reasonably good system. It's not perfect, but hey, as Churchill might have said, I haven't found one that's more perfect. And perfection, well, there's another story. But it gets back to everybody in Australia, whether or not they be, well, if we're talking about voting age, for example, in elections, if you're 18, you're going to vote. Don't put it down as some sort of useless chore that, I hate politics and I hate this. It's part of the bigger system within which you live. So it's only a moment of responsibility, but it's worthwhile taking the time to say, okay, what have I done today has been part of my duty? And duty is a good thing.
Duty is a privilege.
Contribution. Privilege. Do you want to expand on that? Duty is a privilege?
I'd love to expand on that. The purpose of life is responsibility. The purpose of life is to tether yourself to things that rely on you, and then to understand that them relying on you gives you a purpose to be able to connect to what's important. So you think waking up early to go to a church group or go to a run, or you think that's fun when I wake up before the sun's up?
No, I don't think it is.
It's not until you leave that you realize what the true value is. It's not until you reflect on the conversations that you had and you go, oh, wow, I learned something from this person. I got to contribute something back, right? And like these long-term, like I have a social skating group that I run twice a week now for 3 or something years. Like more often than not, I don't want to go, would you believe? And every single time I come home, I'm glad I did.
Yep.
The duty that you give yourself, and this in a bigger scale is being a parent, right?
Yes.
You think it's fun for 18 years? I have everyone telling me at the moment that we're trying for a baby at the moment, right?
Yep.
I had a vasectomy for 8 years. I had a vasectomy reversal. I've gone through the fucking trenches to try and become a parent, and now I've got everyone saying like, "Oh, you don't get it." Like, yeah, no shit, I don't get it. That's why I'm doing it.
Yep.
Sounds scary as hell. You think I want to ruin this awesome life that I've got, where I got money coming in, big house, beautiful friends, family, time, energy? You think I want to go and donate all of that to a unsure thing that something might happen that will destroy me?
Yep. And you're talking about meaning now,
right?
Which is everybody needs to have a little bit of a notion of meaning, because
Correct.
if you don't, then you are living in some sort of vacuum.
You're not tethered to anything. You're floating through space. So just to make sure this doesn't be unconclusive, the purpose of duty in the human experience is to give you something that fills you with fiber, that gives you that tethering to the universe. You know, Volkanovski just won after I don't know how many losses. He just won the belt back in UFC. Do you follow UFC?
I don't, but I can understand where we're going.
The one thing that he said that everyone's holding on to at the moment, this was just last weekend, the one thing he said after he won is adversity is a privilege. To be the underdog is a privilege.
Yes.
To be the one who has to prove yourself is a privilege. It's not bad. It's actually great. You know?
I'm totally with you on that. I think that any endeavor that is perhaps beyond your normal capacity is a worthwhile goal. So chase it. And as you chase it with respect for what you're going after, and respect for yourself as you go and achieve it. And if you don't achieve it, it's not a loss. It's the endeavor along the way that counts.
Oh, dude, you're still better off than sitting on the couch for 6 months.
Oh, yeah. Or behind the screen looking at something that is quite mindless.
Watching other people like me do it. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's easy for him because fill in the gap.
Yeah.
Brother, it has not been easy yet.
Yeah.
There is no part that was like, oh, that was easy. It's all hard.
Yeah. Every second spent looking at a screen, I suppose, you might be learning and you might be interacting with it, but I'm not quite sure. I've never been a gamer, for example, and I'm not sure about it. I'm not condemning it or saying it's not a worthwhile hobby, but because I haven't delved into that, it's many, many hours that I have spent doing other things that I haven't spent gaming.
Yeah.
I guess when you come down to other things that you spend hours on, like gardening, I like the idea of gardening. I'm a pretty lousy gardener, but I do grow things.
Yeah.
And when I grow something, I'm thinking, yeah, okay, I nurtured that. I watered it. I fertilised it. I planted it.
Yep.
And here it is growing. And isn't that a buzz? It's not the be-all and end-all of my world because I've got all of these other things in my life as well, but it's a contributor. And I think that if you looked at your life, the way you think, the way you nurture your consciousness, and there's another thing, you've got to make sure that it's got lots in it. There's no point in just doing one thing, like sitting behind a screen and gaming, for example, or perhaps even going out and continuously painting your posts white and doing the same thing. Repetition can be okay.
There's okay, so my first thought is you say do lots of things. I think there's a limit on lots.
There can be, yes.
I'm listening to a song at the moment that has this great quote in it, and it's something on the lines of he who thinks about life has nothing to think about because he only thinks about life. You have to go and live life.
Yep.
You have to be living to be able to have a reflection of what you're thinking about.
Yep.
And that just hits home every time. Yeah. You know, it's like the great comedian. If you're just a comedian, just traveling, doing comedy shows, all your jokes end up being about airplanes.
Yeah, or the latest city that you're in.
Whatever it is.
Welcome to Delaware.
It's like you need to go and spend 6 months mountain climbing or doing this or doing that so you can come away and go like, man, don't you think it's fucking funny when llamas bite you whatever it is. It's like you have to live to then have reflection on that to then put that into the future of your life.
Yeah. And that's probably the meaning of life when you think about it. Trying to do things. And you're right, there's not an infinite number of lots that you need to do. I would have loved to have been, the star opening batsman for the English or for the Australian side in England at Lords, but hey, it wasn't going to happen.
It's 3 to 5.
3 to 5?
3 to 5 things.
Okay.
I think.
And that comes back to, I suppose, my career, if I like to think about it. And I'll bring up the most boring topic in the world is local government.
There you go.
But I'm going to ask you to indulge me for about 30 seconds. When I joined local government with the city of Bunbury, I was elected as a councillor. My aim was to do one or two things.
She's going to go crazy. We'll let the girls calm her down. Shoot.
I vowed to do one or two things that were meaningful over my time as a councillor in local government. A local government councillor will go into council on a Tuesday and make hundreds of decisions over 4 years. I did 12 years, so literally thousands of decisions over those years.
So you did 3 terms?
3 terms, 12 years.
Yeah.
And what I was
this is so you're a city councillor?
City councillor for the city of Bunbury, yep.
Okay.
So over 12 years, 3 terms of 4 years, I made thousands of decisions as a collective on council. There was another 11 people with me, plus the mayor, who were making these decisions.
Yep.
And they just go. They come and go. They come and go.
Yep.
What I did right at the beginning was that I picked 2 things that I was going to see through over my entire career. One was access and inclusion, to make sure that all things were accessible and we included all people. And I led that committee for 12 years. And the other one was heritage. The fabric of heritage in Bunbury. So those 2 things that I spent 12 years on. And when I came out the other end, I was able to measure something that I had achieved rather than just here's a decision, here's another decision, somebody's patio, somebody's fence, somebody's policy, whatever it happened to be.
Yep.
So by picking one thing or 2 things in this case, as you said, 3 to 5.
Yep.
I picked 2 over a 12-year period and I stuck at it. Yep. I chaired those committees for 12 years and at the end of it, we had better access. We were talking about the ramp at Lost Bills Bar. Yep. That ramp was put in as a result of that Access and Inclusion Committee, where they said every new development is going to have access for somebody in a wheelchair, somebody who's pushing a pram, old Nana whose knees are gone, or the Star Centre Ford who's just done a ligament.
Yep.
They were able to access these venues, these places like anybody else. Obviously, you can't get to the top of a tower, if it's only got steps and it's...
Within reason.
Yeah. So it's got to be within reason. And so it gets back to those 3 to 5 things. If you are human and you've got some endeavour, pick something that you're going to stick with if you can, and pursue it. Pursue it with all your ability, all your soul, all your passion, all yourself, so that at the end of it, when your life flitters before you, it's not just one photograph showing the same thing. You've got a 35mm coloured frame here, and my life is flashing before me. Gee, did I do some stuff? Yes, I did.
Yeah. I think there's I keep having this thing come into my mind with different things that you're saying. I've been having an internal monologue about a particular conversation that I had on the podcast recently, and I for the sake of transparency, it was a chat with Amanda Yip. You know Amanda?
Yep, I do.
So I basically said, I'm the man. I'm going to be a great parent. Here's how it's going to go down. And she said, well, let's check back in 10 years and see how that landed. And I almost being completely vulnerable here, I took offense to it. And in my mind, I'm like, yeah, fucking check back in 10 years. Check back in. And the more I unwound it in the moment, and I had that conversation, like a lot of great conversation, you're convincing yourself as much as you're convincing the other person.
Yeah.
I tried to understand a few things. Like, she's right, because she's a parent. She has 100%, 200%, 300% more experience than I do.
Yes.
Right? I take this very sort of maybe naive point of view in that, well, have you started a business from scratch? Have you built something out of nothing? Have you built a community and all these things? Like, I'm trying to defend my ego in this instance, and I really I work myself back to the other side. It's like, she's not having a shot at you. She's just saying, hey, great ambition.
Yep.
Let's see how you go. And I have had to defend my honor of idea of being a great parent before it's happened to a lot of people in my family, my friends, people who are in these positions where they're like, I don't know you from the conversation we're having. Like, I just don't know you, And I think the thing that I've landed on is, outside of that, just using that as a sort of instigator of this thought, this inner monologue, everything great. Not everyone who has the intention to achieve greatness has ended up achieving greatness.
That's correct.
But everyone who has achieved greatness started with a great intention.
Yep. Okay, and that sums it up. And if you don't have a great intention, then you'll dawdle your way through, hoping for chance.
Thank you.
And sometimes it'll work and sometimes it won't. You've got to have some intent.
The ambition has to be there.
Yep. Can I say, when I started, after I left school, I was a bit of a rebel, I suppose, as they used it in the old terms. And when I left school, I had a very checkered career, to the point where I said to myself, well, my career is not having a career. So I had made a career out of not having a career.
Beautiful.
Which was great for 20 years. And when I turned 37, I suddenly got a career, coming to Bunbury, of all places, to do it. There's a lot of ironies in that, given my dad was born in Bunbury, and if somebody had have said to me 33, 34 years ago that I'd be living and working in Bunbury for over 30 years, I would have said, give me some of what you're smoking and we'll have a party.
Yeah.
But in saying that, I didn't get a career until 37. I didn't get a mortgage until I was 53.
Beautiful.
And paid it off in 10 years with my lovely partner. We blitzed it. We got it. We've got it now. We don't have any debt.
Yeah.
And we've got a house, which is great. But
I think that makes you part of the 1%, by the way.
I like being a 1%er.
Yeah.
But the point being that when I see people who are concerned about their career and about where they're going at, say, 25 or 30 or 35, I tell them that. I say, I didn't have a career until I was 37. Oh, okay, that's okay then.
Yeah.
But you still have to have some sort of intent. My intent, not to have a career, or to have a career out of not having a career, which was a pretty dumb thing to say in a way. Although it worked. So ultimately,
Through
here
the
I am.
practice of like applying yourself to a thing, though, the very skill of going, I'm going to do this and doing that was giving you runs on the board.
It was indeed. And it certainly gave me a lot of experience. I've worked in many, many jobs in not having a career because you still had to work. It didn't matter what you were.
You need money.
You need money to meet. That's what made the world go round. I did menial jobs. I did significant jobs. I did anything that came my way. And in a way, very lucky. And I think that there's still an element of luck in what you do. And for the next gen, whoever they are right now, setting out to do stuff, I think that word that you mentioned before, intent. Do things with intent. And if it's running around the big swamp tomorrow morning, do it with intent. Do it with some forethought. Do it with something going through your mind. It's the same with the wheelie, Jake.
Yeah.
My intent's to do the best wheelie on the planet.
Yeah.
I'm there. Hey, have a look.
The role that luck plays, I think, is very interesting. The harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yes,
you know?
No doubt about that. Famous saying, that one.
I like the concept or the metaphor of the red car theory. Like, how many red cars did you see on the way here?
I didn't see any red cars that I noted.
Right. Now, if I asked you before you left, make sure you count how many red cars you see, because I'm going to ask you how many red cars will you have seen.
I would have seen a few.
Right. Now, this is the same as if I say Hot Wheels. It's the same as if I say flowers. It's the same as if I say ducks. It's the same as if I say opportunities to make money.
Yep.
If you start looking for opportunities to make money, you'll tend to find that you come across more of them.
Yeah.
You'll start looking at things differently. Like, instead of Marketplace being a place for you to acquire more shit for your house, you're like, he's selling this for 20. That's worth 100.
Yep.
You know, you start going like, oh, I heard someone say the other day, like, I remember when I was working at Luca as a process operator, all these dudes are all 50, 60. They don't know how the world works, right? You go, oh, I want a bull bar for my Ranger. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Gumtree, $250. I got a bull bar for your Ranger. I can drop it off for you tomorrow. It's $400. He's like, $400 is a bargain.
You just made 150.
So the perspective of like the red car theory is like, once you decide like, all right, I'm sick of having a job. The 9 to 5 doesn't work for me. And we're going to use like business as an example here. But once you start training your mind to look for these new things that are outside of what you're normally looking for. I mean, as a guy, normally all you're looking for is like, you know, where's the beer, where's the tits, where's the comfort. If you start going like, well, where's the opportunity? Where's the network? Where's the fill in the blank for what makes a valuable thing that you're trying to build? Yes, day one is very hard.
Yeah.
And month one is a little bit better, minute. Month 6, you start to go like, oh, okay. By 12 months, you're like, oh,
I'm humming.
This is kind of scary, actually. And then by year 5, which is where I'm at, as I said to you before we started, the wheel is only just starting to turn, and things are just starting to happen for me.
Yep.
And you're like, oh my goodness, the potential. Not that this business has, not that this interest has, but that I have in myself now that I've decided to turn that thing on. I'm doing it with intent. I have faith that it's going to work, and I put in the work every damn day, regardless of how I think it's going to turn out.
Yep.
That's when shit starts happening.
Yeah, and you got to do that. You've got to do something every day, and that's a secret to anything. I believe that if you are building something, you've got to lay a brick at a time.
Yeah,
and if you continue to lay bricks, you'll get somewhere. And it's worthwhile for the metaphors for life that we've got. And one of them is building your house or building something.
Yep.
You can only do it one thing at a time. And I do recall, actually, this is only recently, when a local politician or a candidate for the federal election, Dr. Sue Chapman, I had sat down and had a bit of a yarn to her, and I said, well, one of the things that in running a campaign is you've got to do something every day. And doing something every day might start by getting out of bed and sending a signal, having a conversation, etc. It's about building up what you're hoping to achieve, so in order to be able to achieve it. Yeah, there's no such thing as the instant. Although there's a great song, "Instant Karma," gonna get you. It's a John Lennon song. But what you've just said is totally correct. You've got to build. And by getting out of bed and starting to build in the morning and during the day is when you finally get some achievement. And getting back to going to bed, you say that prayer. Say that prayer of thanks for the fact that you've had that day, and hopefully you've achieved something during that day.
The idea of 3 to 5 major things that you're trying to achieve, whether it be this year, this decade, this life, is that you only have to get not even 1% better a day, but you just have to get just something a bit better than yesterday.
Yep.
And I mean, you can do it with as little as half an hour a day. You know, half an hour a day does eventually equivalate. Is that a word? Equivalate to 10,000 hours.
Yep.
But if you do an hour a day, or 2 hours a day, or 8 hours a day, or heaven forbid 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, you get to 10,000 real quick.
Yep.
And then the quicker you get to 10,000, now we hit professional status. Now you can start actually doing the thing, because everything's been practice up until that point. You know, but once you hit that 10,000 hours, you're in.
As a writer, I know that. I have to sit down in front of my computer and write. And look, I can tell you now, Jake, it would be easy for me just to throw the concepts into AI and push the button.
Yeah.
That would be, I could write a bestseller on that one, but will it have engaged my mind? Will it have engaged my thought processes? My thought processes, not AI's. I doubt it very much, although, you know, you'd have to give some thought to that. But writing a book is one word at a time, and building a business, I think, is one concept, one action at a time as well.
Yeah, one lesson at a time, it feels like at the moment. I do see 3 potential possibilities for you. 3 sort of tangents on what you've just said. One is, if you write the book yourself and not AI, it continues to be a creative endeavor for you.
Yes.
And you get to keep asking the questions. Am I writing for me or writing for them? The second thing is, you can fully feed everything that you've ever written to AI and ask it to write something in your tone, but with a progressive nature so that you continue to learn. Third thing is, you can do exactly that, not for the reader, but for you to read back and improve your writing.
Absolutely. And that's when you become multi-dimensional. And for my era of person, of human on this planet, we've gone from, virtually no TV, just having a wireless, as I alluded to before, right through to now I can push a button. Yeah. And you did earlier, ask AI a certain question to have a conversation. Yeah. And it's a remarkable thing, and I think it's infinite in front of us as well. There's no end to it.
Of course.
We hope that ultimately humans take the right path, if you like, the path of righteousness, and there is righteousness and there is wrong. We hope that somewhere along the line, the greater number of humans on this planet decide, no, we've got a higher purpose for existence, not just one of usury or madness, but something that is heading towards a greater good, if you like, or you could even call it a greater God if you took the O out. A higher purpose of nobility, can we call it that?
I think there's something that speaks to the value that experience gives you. I think if you create a life for yourself where you have total, hedonistic sort of results, and you get to experience, all of the possible options that you might want in a single moment, and then come out of that and realize that the value wasn't as nice as just waking up with your energy and health and people that you love around you. Yep. And being able to A and B compare those things. I think a lot of people don't get that hedonistic moment in their life. I had it for probably 5 years, if I'm honest, and it fucking sucks.
Yeah.
The flame will burn you, I promise you.
There's only so much you can do in that right. field.
Now, with that, I get to sit here and go like, I try to speak the words of the Bible. I try and, like we said before, you can pray to good and you can pray to bad. You can pick your frequency. I promise you, whatever you visualize, speak into the universe and have faith that is going to happen, whether it's good or bad, it'll work. If you pray for more money, you'll get it. If you pray for more power, you'll get it, right? If you pray just to get whatever is meant to be yours, and if you pray to be guided on that path, and praise even a word that I'm feeling is taking away from what I'm talking about because it's been so thrashed by religion in general. But if you ask for just keep me on the path that I'm meant to be on, keep me pointed in towards the purpose that is mine, then you sort to have this like realization that like all of those things, that hedonistic sort of like whatever that is for you, isn't going to serve you the same way as pure thoughts. I mean, and I'm not perfect. I'm nowhere near perfect. I still fuck up every day, but I'm trying to not fuck up.
Yep.
You know? And it's like having the comparison. I got lucky to have the comparison of like going through all of that and coming out and being like, that kind of sucks. It actually really sucks. You know, the being tired all the time ain't it. I promise you, you know?
And I think that comes back to the consciousness, and it's a nice place to wind up on one's own consciousness, one's own soul, one's own being. You got to work on it. And you got to work on it by bringing in the externals of love and beauty, as Leonard Cohen. I'll quote another guy there. I was a big fan of Leonard Cohen as a poet. If you bring all of the love and beauty that is external into your own consciousness, then you can't go wrong. If you're generating from your own consciousness just what you want, just for the sake of the hedonism, or, you know, this is me, I'm going to do that, the ego, so to speak, then you're not a full package. You got to bring all that other stuff outside, and you got to bring the good stuff in, because it's the good stuff that gives you joy.
Correct. I think as a reflection exercise, I like to go, well, where did this hedonistic idea come from? Why do you think you need the drugs and alcohol? Why do you think you need to party every weekend? Why do you think you need the money? Why do you think you need to break the rules and get away with it? Why? You know, and I look at a lot of it as to, well, I don't think I was born with it. I think there was a lot of influence from media. There's a lot of influence from friends and people that I idolized, and maybe where they were influenced from, whether it was their family or different upbringing, whatever it was. I was influenced by my childhood and by the way that I didn't, you know, it was perfectly normal to me, but now I've grown up, I realize most people don't move 100 times before they're 10 years old. Most people have friends that they grew up with and in a house, and they have like safety, and not that I wasn't unsafe, but I didn't have that core place where I grew up and I kind of connected to.
Yep, that's the identity.
Right. So, you know, I think there's a certain amount of rebellion in there, you know, that you go, you spoke about this before as well, you know.
Indeed.
Having that point of like, I don't want to be normal.
Yeah.
I don't want to fit into the groove.
I want to stand out.
I want to be a contrarian.
There's a fair bit of ego about that.
Right.
And I was there. I can guarantee you that.
And that is sort of like, you know, I think the immediate response to when you start to step out of this hedonist lifestyle, you're like, I keep on saying hedonist, like it's just the word for the conversation at the moment.
It's a good word.
I think you feel like this wave of shame. Like, what did I do to my body? I was an athlete when at 18, I retired from being a professional athlete, and I ruined that in such a small amount of time with horrible decisions, right? But the pendulum has to swing. The pendulum really has to swing. To appreciate that, you actually have to go there.
Well, maybe that dropping out of the one life into another life was meant to be. It's part of the fate, part of what's making you better now. And that's the other thing. I think the good old Catholic concept of guilt. You don't want to wander too much around guilt, because guilt will chew you up. It'll spit you out. And it's a case of saying to yourself at one stage, well, what will be, will be. What has been is been. It's gone. It's there. It's experience, but it is no longer demanding you to be one thing or another. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that as you progress in life that you know, you got to check off, if you like, along the way. You know, okay,
for sure.
Yeah, I did that. Oh, that was shit. But I did that. That was great. And next time I do something, I want it to feel great. I don't want it to feel shit. So you make those judgments from experience. It's like getting burned in the fire. I'm not going to do that again by putting my hand into the fire just to see if it really does feel yellow.
You know, something just occurred to me then. I'm not sure if you probably have a similarity here. I obsess about communication. I love communication, and I hate it at the same time, because I'm constantly beating myself up because of it. And one of the most common things that has been sort of a reoccurring thing is the exact technique to successfully hanging up a call.
As we're talking about telephone calls or even podcasts, Yeah.
Podcast not as much because it's not as important. But I've just spoken to a new client. Like they've just experienced me for the first time. It was a referral, and I'm talking to the Jake from Blxck Outfit Co.
Yeah.
Right? And then right at the end of the call, I say, "Anyway, mate, I'll catch you later." He says, "Yep, bye." And halfway through, I've already hung up.
Yeah.
I left a bad taste in his mouth.
Yeah, right.
I fucked the sale before it started.
That happens often when they get beep, 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 and you're still
going. Because you know what? I know how I feel when it happens to me. That guy's never getting $1 from me. Right?
Yeah, I not having had to be a salesman, but working with a lot of people over my years as a public servant.
Right.
I always try to leave the person with a positive message from me. And it's not, I'm from the government, I'm here to help you, because most people take that badly. But certainly my philosophy as a public servant, working with the public about certain development issues and what they needed to know to go ahead with their project, whatever it happened to be, I always like to leave them with something positive. To say, yep, okay, no, this idea doesn't, this idea does have wings. It can go somewhere.
Yeah.
Here's where the bar is. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. You've got to do the third thing. If you can do those three things, man, you've got a great project.
Right.
And that's a positive to say, hey, mate, you're not going to get anywhere here unless you do this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And so you're using the positive rather than the negative. And if they can do it, hey, they've got a great project. The environment is okay. Everybody else is good with it. There's economy out of it, and there's some satisfaction at the end. So encouragement, I guess that's called. So leaving a call, you've got to be encouraging. It's got to be a go well.
I think it's you can spend 45 minutes having a great conversation and stuff it up in the last 3 seconds, which blows my mind. I think the thing here was so often I would, that wasn't right. Hang up. I go, that wasn't right. Hang up. That wasn't right. This person has a weird style. And now it's at a point where I know if I call this person, they like to finish a conversation and then small talk for a minute.
Yep.
This person, other person, they don't want to waste time.
Yep.
They barely want to say hello. What's up?
Yep.
All right. Hang up.
They're gone.
Right. You hang up on them. They like it.
Yep.
Right. Mum, I love you. Love you too. Yeah. I'll talk to you soon. Beautiful. Bye.
Yeah.
Right? And then you start to develop that not only are you adapting to other people's style, but you have a style as well.
Yep.
Right? Now, a really bad motherfucker, someone who is as obsessive as me, you can hear them doctoring their thing to adjust to me.
Right?
And now we get a power play thing. That's another conversation. The point that I'm making here is I make several phone calls a day, every day. Even on weekends, public holidays is what I do. I love to just connect with people. And I had this feeling over and over and over and over again that I wasn't doing any good. Only just recently in the past 6 months am I starting to nail 9 out of 10 calls. The ending is just perfect, right?
Yep. And
I got to a point where I was like, am I doing something? Why do I feel bad all the time? Why do I always feel like I'm the one who stuffed up the call? It's because you're the one taking it seriously.
Yeah, okay. Yep, so you got to chill a little bit on that one.
Not even that. It's that you're trying to get better at something, right? You're sharpening your teeth at the moment. And sharpening your teeth hurts, and that's fine.
And maybe there's something about when you're doing your sharpening, you need to do it with a little bit of make it more organic. When you start, and I'm going to use the word advisedly, I suppose, artificially trying to hone your pitch, sometimes it can seem artificial to the other person. There's something natural about signing off with somebody to leave them thinking, oh, that was a good conversation. By forcing it, if you like, you can sometimes project the artificiality, and then that's picked up by the other person.
That's also a bad taste.
Yeah. I will say one thing about communication. I use this technique often when I've had conversations with people, particularly professionally. I have often followed it up with a short email.
Okay.
Thanks for the conversation. I appreciate whatever it is you're talking about, and then maybe an afterthought. Afterthoughts are great. You don't have to say that I had an afterthought. You can manufacture the afterthought right away. But that little customer service follow-up, which is something that
sales.
Sales afterthought, after service is something great. But if you know the person well, even a text, thanks to the conversation, I'm onto a couple of good angles from that. Cheers.
Yeah.
So it's a very simple acknowledgement that person at the other end has given you an idea.
Yeah. There's also they listened.
Yeah.
Like actually digested what you said and.
Yep. It's customer service, and I got used to it as a government official. I was in land use planning, so every major project in the southwest that was needed a requirement to have a ruler run over it for water and the environment, it came past our desk in our land use planning unit. And before I left, I said to the boss, I said, somebody needs to download me. Literally, I've got all this experience, download me on my customer service, stakeholder engagement type of stuff. And I still say it now. And in a way, I've made this offer to a lot of people. I mentioned going to the Bunbury Business Workshop this week. Yep. I actually made an offer to the people at the table, younger people. I say, look, guys, if you want to download me, catch me up for a coffee. I know shit.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm any more special. It's just I've had 33 years of collecting that type of shit in that field. So there's no point in going to your grave holding it all inside. If you can pass on a skill, hand-on information, experience, then that's what makes the world the place it is.
I think there's I've spoken about this before with different guests in a different light. I think there is a generational shift in perspective of information retention.
Yes.
Because I've learned everything that you see in my business has been self-taught off YouTube, of people who have given their information for free on YouTube.
Yep.
Right? And then sure you can say, they monetize their videos, or they get the egotistical thing of 10,000 people have seen it, whatever. I've learned how to use programs. I've learned how to produce podcasts. I've learned how to be more valuable in my speech. I've learned how to fix problems on my machines. I've learned how to get better at my process, all through people giving their information away for free.
Yep.
And one of my primary mentor, I go to him with specific problems. He pauses his day.
Yeah.
He gets his whiteboard out. We draw pictures until we figure the problem out, and then he goes thanks and shake hands, and then I go fix the problem.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I'm not going to say who it was, but I sat down with another old head in this town when I first thought about doing the specific thing that I'm doing now, what the business has turned into.
Yep.
And he was at that time one of the primary leaders in that industry. I said, here's what I want to do. And I'm thinking we could, maybe like collaborate in a way, because I wouldn't actually be taking any slice of your pie, because I'm going to do it this way and full of naivety and energy and all the rest. And he kind of sat back and smiled. He goes, you want to do this? It's really hard. You'd be better off driving a truck up the hill. I said, all right. You tell me what business is easy, and I'll go do that. What business is easy? Which one won't be a struggle? Which one won't be really difficult? And I'll go do that. And he goes, I don't know what you mean. I said, it's all hard, brother. It's all hard. The thing that I'm really bringing up here is he didn't want to share.
Yeah.
And my mentor, who is 2 years older than me, he can't share enough. He sends me information at 10 o'clock at night saying, I think this would be good for your business. I think this would be good for your business. And I think what you're offering is a very rare opportunity to share information that would be valuable. You're kind of saying, like, I've got these gems here and I want you to have them.
Yeah, they're free.
They're free.
Yeah.
You can come. I don't even know if you want them to buy you the coffee. Just sit down and have the coffee.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's a very unique thing to see from your generation, looking at it from a businessman in my generation. Because I have no problem going to Jimmy Giarchi and asking a question, or Jordan Gianfrancesco asking a question. These people that are just like, oh, fuck yeah, what do you want to do? Let's do it. Let's do it now. Let's make it happen. Compared to old mate who I'm like, I wouldn't mind doing this. He's like, yeah, fucking good luck. You know how hard that is?
Yeah. Look, and you're right about mentoring. Mentoring had a different meaning back in the old days. We're going back in the old days again. I'm an historian. So when I say old days, I'm not being nostalgic. I'm really interested in channeling the past, because there's nothing that is going to be done that hasn't been done in a way, if you like to look at it that way. So my specialty era is 1875 to 1895 in Western Australia, amateur entertainment.
Okay.
So and people look at me and go, well, that's niche, Brendan, isn't it? And I said, yeah, it is. But I tell you what, it's rich. There is richness beyond belief in that historical era in Western Australia, which includes statehood, includes the gold booms, the first big booms in Western Australia, a huge upsurge in cultural awareness in Western Australia, and through the eyes of amateur entertainers, when ladies and gentlemen all thought that they should be on the stage and be famous, like a Lady Gaga or somebody like that, a Brad Pitt, if you like. And but in those days, it wasn't wise to be on the stage. Stage was a place full of charlatans and spivs and strange people.
Forgive my ignorance here. What's a charlatan?
A charlatan is somebody who pretends to be somebody else. So somebody who is, they front up and you think, wow, they're the real deal, and they're not.
I might be a charlatan.
Everybody can be a charlatan, by the way.
I think the idea is you kind of start as a charlatan to make yourself not one.
Yes, you can do it. It's fake it till you make it. A charlatan is somebody who is a fake.
Yeah.
But if they work hard enough at it, they become the real deal.
Yeah.
And the amateur entertainers, back in those days, 1875 to 1895, it was a sin to have your daughter or your son on stage. That would be just horrendous, because stage door Johnnies and sex and drugs and Gilbert and Sullivan. I mean, whoa, you got to be a lawyer or a So what happened was that every young man and every young woman who went to school was trained to sing and dance, play an instrument, because that was part of your rounding of your education.
Yeah.
But God help you if you decided you wanted to go on stage, my God. So they used the word amateur. Amateur did not denote that you were no good at it, that you were somebody trying to be a professional. Amateur just differentiated you to say that you were a lady or gentleman of talent who could do it but didn't need to do it, because you didn't need to be a professional at that. You were a higher born.
Wow.
You had a real job. So the word amateur referred to sports people in those days too. You had amateur cricketers.
Yeah.
They played cricket. Well, I don't have to play cricket. It's just I'm so good at it that I am.
Wow.
Amateur sportsmen, amateur actors, etc. And some of these people in this era that I've studied were highly qualified. They were really good at it. They were the Brad Pitts and the Lady Gagas of their day, if I can just pull those two out. I'm probably a little bit behind in time, because Brad Pitt's getting pretty old. Lady Gaga's still talented though. In looking at history and channeling history, and this is my point here, I'm not nostalgic about yesterday. I'm learning from yesterday. I can channel what happened 135 years ago and say, whoa, I know that experience, that taught that person something then.
Yeah.
I'm just going to grab a little bit of that to improve my own knowledge. And being an historian is, again, a very rich thing. As a matter of fact, I'll just leave the history bit for a moment, but I'm part of the Southwest History Writers Group in Bunbury.
Okay.
And they are the most eclectic people. They've all got a particular interest in some sort of notion of history. I've got a friend who's doing queer history in Victorian times,
right?
Which was full of euphemism. You didn't say that you're queer. You said, I'm a bachelor.
Yeah.
Or, this is my companion.
Yeah.
There's a different language to get through these things. Other people, I know a person who has done a manifest of every ship that came into Geograph Bay between 1834 and 1974.
Yep.
Cop that. Yeah, right. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
But the depth of channeling what came off those ships, the experiences of the sailors and the humans that were interacting with it is just so rich. You can go on forever in any historic perspective.
Of course.
And I use the word channeling because when I'm doing my research and when I'm doing my writing, I'm usually there. And I find that a buzz. I'm not physically going back to 1885, but I'm actually communing with those people.
It's the pleasure of reading. When you think about it, a reading allows you to hear the story with your own mind's voice, with your imagination creating it as you go along.
Yep.
It's not a screen going, here it is in the most obvious sense, the colours, the sounds, the rest. It's like you're reading a book. Like I love, weirdly enough, I love like 60s, 70s, 80s crime culture out of Sydney.
Oh, yeah.
I love like, Ned Smith, Abbo, that whole kind of thing. And the thing I love reading it is I can almost smell... I can almost smell the room, you know what I mean? The smell of cigarettes and gunpowder, I'm there. And then you watch was it Blue something, the TV show made
Blue
about
Murder.
it, and you're like, this is. What is this? You know what I mean? Like, I got better production quality on my podcast, you know?
It's interesting you say that because we've just delved into the historic and being able to acknowledge history as being something that if you forget it, you're condemned to repeat it.
Correct.
But you certainly can learn a lot from it. And I mentioned I've written an essay called Sex and Drugs and Gilbert and Sullivan. And I just mentioned quickly, the Victorians are always seen as being straight up, like, they didn't do anything outside propriety. But in actual fact, they were amazing in the way they did indulge in all three. And there was back in Victorian times, they had pharmaceuticals that you wouldn't believe, a thing called chlorodyne, which it was made up of opium, cannabis, alcohol, and ether with a little bit of sugar for flavour.
Have you got any, or what's going on?
They used to sell this stuff made up on the premises to different measures on the streets.
Yeah.
And there was the president of the Legislative Council of Western Australia, Sir Thomas Cockburn Campbell, got addicted to this stuff and died in his parliamentary office of an overdose.
Really?
And in
was it orally smoked?
No, oral. Yeah,
Okay.
It was basically a tonic, and it was a pick me up and a put me down. You take some in the morning and get you going, and you take some at night to put you down.
Wow.
And chlorodyne caused a lot of deaths, including Sir Thomas Cockburn Campbell.
Yeah.
Who, as I said, died in his office up in Parliament House. And in 1894, as a result of this, they came in with the Poisons Act, and that's an act of Parliament to actually regulate what you could sell through a pharmacy or through the shop.
Right.
So poisons had to be the bottle had to have poison on it.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people who are swigging this stuff or swigging something, and it happened to be arsenic that they bought to kill rats, or a cyanide or something like that.
Okay.
So, but the Victorians were big on their drugs, as they were on their sex. They love sex much the same as humans like sex now, for obvious reasons. And they were a bit more circumspect about it. Obviously, for a woman to be pregnant, that was bad news. They had ways of managing that. For gay men and women, they had to hide behind euphemisms. As I said, he was a confirmed bachelor. He also happened to be, a parliamentarian or a businessman or somebody who was philanthropic. For a woman, she never married. That was another way of doing it, and she lived with her companion.
Yeah.
That was just a euphemism for that. As for the rock and roll, as they say, sex and drugs and rock and roll, sex and drugs and Gilbert and Sullivan.
Yeah.
Gilbert and Sullivan on stage was an amazing twirl of stagecraft. There was light, there was visuals, there was things flapping around, and it was an opportunity for people to get close together, men and women and women and women and men and men, to get together on the stage and do something that was seen as being entertaining. At the same time, they were getting off on it themselves.
Wow.
So if you look at the modern term sex and drugs and rock and roll, which was immortalised by Ian Drury and the Blockheads, great song.
Yeah.
It's been around for a long time in different ways. Wine, women and song would be another way of saying it back in the old days.
Wine, women, and song.
Yeah, I fell for wine, women and song,
Yeah.
which is basically drugs and sex and rock and roll.
Yeah.
But I loop back, Jake, because once you get historians talking about their pet subject,
it never ends.
It never does end. It can get a bit of a drone.
Yeah.
Getting back into where we were talking about experience and consciousness and being, if you are looking back in history and looking at people who did different things and then align yourself to their experience, you gain something. It's not just about reading a piece of history. Historians aren't people who are just looking back in a nostalgic frame. True historians are people who are actually channeling an experience. It sounds a little bit esoteric, a bit mysterious, but it works.
So I think this organically bleeds into what I'm kind of the general theory that I've been saying about faith, you know, and I think my relationship with faith and the practice of religion that's sort of become a lot more apparent in my life since realizing what I read in Think and Grow Rich is quite aligned with practicing faith in a religious sense. You know, I've since started going to church in the past 12 months. I've actually had the pastor of our church on the podcast where I get to really like delve into like, hey man, I don't know what I'm talking about. Can you help me this, that, and the other?
Yep.
I think one of the most recent things that I've sort of like come to maybe help me understand where I'm at in my journey at the moment is trying to understand where the Bible fits into all of this, because the Bible is something that, again, I feel has been sort of bastardized with the overbearing nature of what religion feels like to people who aren't religious.
Yep.
And you kind of go, Bible bashing, these terms that make you feel like, if I don't have anything to do with it, I don't want anything to do with it. And the more I read the Bible, because I'm reading the Bible front to back in order, you know, instead of sort of cherry picking what's relevant to me, it's like, no, let me start at Genesis and finish Revelation and see what happens, right? And the thing that seems to be apparent to me is the Bible almost feels like a tutorial on life at a psychological level.
Yep. Okay. Yep. I can go with that.
Right.
I do have a Bible too. I have a couple of Bibles at home, and I read it every now and then, but I do cherry pick.
Right. And that is typically sort of, I'm not going to say where you start as if I'm somewhere further down the path, but that's where I started, you know, like let's read Matthew. Oh, cool. I got a chapter out. Let's read a bit of Revelation because that's apparently what's happening now. And let's go to, right. I think the thing that I get starting at Genesis is like, this sort of starts somewhere before the womb. Right. And now that I'm going to jump forward a heap here, but now that I'm considering becoming a parent and going through the trials of becoming a parent, I now start to understand in a deeper sense what it means for God to sacrifice his only son on the cross for everyone else. Because now I know what it's like to be a son, but now I have to consider what it's like to be a father. And just at the moment being a father to my dog Lou, I could never sacrifice her for anything.
No.
Now,
And yeah, there's a metaphor there. Sorry, I cut across you there. You're going to add to that. I'm thinking back to what's the Bible mean, and how is it relevant? If I took all of the religion out of it, and then just worked on the basis that there is a being or a thing or a presence, whatever
infinite
it is,
awareness, infinite intelligence.
Yeah, that's the one of God. Then if you replace that infinite intelligence in there without going the religious thing and just look at the 10 Commandments. I mean, 10 Commandments is what civilization is built on, Jake.
Yep, agree.
I mean, don't kill somebody, don't go out and shit in your own nest, if you like to call it that way. And I think that the meaning of the Bible is beyond what it's been taken for by religion. I mean, I'm not a religious person. I'm a spiritual person. And I can read the Bible along the lines and say, geez, that's not a bad manual for life, is it?
Beautiful.
And I think I'll use that manual. Yeah. Oh, that means you have to believe this, that, or other. No, mate. No, I'm just using it as a manual.
Yep.
Doesn't mean that it's sort of like reading the manual of a Ford or a Holden. Doesn't mean I'm necessarily in one camp or the other. It just means that I love the manual.
It also means you're not a mechanic.
Right?
Yeah. Like part of the Bible is it's not my job to sit here and tell you how you're wrong in your interpretation.
Yeah.
Just be good.
Yeah, great metaphor, Jake. I like that. That's something coming out of this podcast. I'm going to remember that. I'm not a bloody mechanic.
Beautiful.
I know what it means, but I don't need to be one.
The process of like being raised Catholic, being in Catholic schools my whole life, getting kicked out of a Catholic school, BCC here in town, then we talked a little bit about the experience that I had of getting to a point where I'm like, I'm not going to do this out of guilt. I'm now angry. I'm now upset. I'm now atheist. I'm out of the flock.
Yep.
You know, prove to me that you're real if you're real. See, there's no proof. Leave me alone. I don't want to know about it. Earth's flat. Fuck you, right?
Yep.
And then reading this book that teaches me about faith, that teaches me about prayer, that teaches me about putting these things into action, and then just through the process of going like, this sounds like something I've heard before. This sounds old. Oh, this sounds like what I was brought up on.
Yep.
And making the connection of not only that it sounds the same, but putting these things into practice in a way that is meaningful to me. Do I see results that I can now have faith that was real?
Yep.
Because I feel bad saying it because I am a religious person, but I feel like I'm not religious, but I am spiritual. I go to church on Sundays to be with other people who worship.
Yep.
Right? I go to practice with other people who practice the thing that I practice to get better at the skill that I want to attain.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm a thought leader in a sense. I'm not telling you to be religious and read your Bible. I'm asking you to have the consciousness within yourself to understand why you should have the desire to be good.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a circle that you've completed in a way. I mean, the doubting Thomas, so to speak. You said, no, I'm going to...
Oh, that's part of the Last Supper, doubting
That is
Thomas?
correct, yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna doubt all of this, and even to the point of rejecting it, and then going out and finding it was there all the time.
Right.
That's another metaphor, I suppose, for life. But what I'm thinking of is that I think in every human there's the wish to want to prove it yourself. Something in the universe of your own mind that says, no, I'm going to work this out myself. I'm not going to take your word for it.
Right.
I don't know why that happens.
Become a hedonist to take the value out of it.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's we loop back on that again. You do something dumb, not dumb, but you do something and it works out that it's a pretty stupid thing to do, or that was useless, and then you say, well, I won't do that again, will I?
Right.
And I'm coming back to find something myself. It comes back to finding your own truth.
I think that's the conversation. I don't think I've actually fully got through the point of the negative feeling I was getting from continuously stuffing up or continuously having to get better at these phone call conversation enders. And the thing at the end of it was like, hey man, you're beating yourself up because you're aiming for perfection.
Yeah.
Don't be angry at trying to be perfect.
Yeah.
Understand that you may never get there, and understand no matter how good at this skill you get, there are always going to be times where the conversation ends in a way that you don't think is ideal, and that's fine, but never beat yourself up for doing the work.
Yeah.
Right? And I think it's the exact same as I wasted, in air quotes, this time doing drugs, staying up late, making bad decisions, being with people that I shouldn't be with, right? These things. You go, all right, that was 5 years of time wasted, or 5 years of learning a lesson that is now the foundation of how I make decisions as a better man.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. And that's the ability to piss guilt off and look at experience through an objective lens. Because, you do bad shit. Everybody does things. I mean, there's nobody in the world who can't think of one thing that they've done in their life that they don't cringe.
Right.
I mean, at least I don't know too many.
Yeah.
There may be some, but I think the ability to cringe properly is a gift. Don't turn cringe into guilt, because guilt will weigh you down.
Yeah.
And you don't want that, because you want to you want to keep growing. You want to be growing right until the light starts to dim. And then, everybody has one thing in common, and that is their own death. One thing in common, their own death. They've got one thing in common, which is death, birth and death for that matter, and living. So there's three things in common in a way. But to make sure that you don't put a handbrake on your now by, being guilty or being weighed down by something in your past that is not desirable. You got to get over it. In other words, that's what people say to people all the time. Oh, you got to get over it.
Well, you got to learn from it.
Yeah, learn from it.
Yeah.
And some things you don't get over, and I wouldn't like to cheapen that either. There are some people who have post-traumatic stress disorder that, if we put the term on it, that lasts forever. Something that's happened to them that they never ever leave. It's bounding about in their minds. And I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist, so I can't do much. But what I can be is kind. And I think that's inclusivity and kindness are two gifts that we all have that can help other people. And I think that's got to be remembered.
There's something in this thing that's going on that we're experiencing, you and I, this life. There are these little cheat codes.
Yep.
And one of them is, if you want to improve your day because you're having a bad time, improve someone else's.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you want to make money, give it away.
Yeah.
I don't know why that works. It works though.
Yeah, it does. And a good deed is something that lives on within you, and we learn that too. You know, like selfishness is something that, you know, I think is a bit of an inherent trait from time to time. We all get selfish from time to time over our own time, our existence. You know, we're doing something, somebody comes in and ruins our vibe, and we go out of the zone, and we feel, oh, hang on, you've just taken something off me. I'm pissed off now.
Yeah.
But you've got to expect that that's going to happen, and selfishness in being infringed upon. Yep, okay, you feel that, but you still can't let it define you.
Yeah,
And
I like being 5 years into business now. For complete transparency, so you can understand the position that I'm speaking from. With my fiance is employed full time through the business. Her and I are the two employees of the business. We're both paid. We both take a wage. The wage is ridiculously low, but we live within our means. We have a very modest lifestyle. The only thing that you could question is that we always have new clothes. We're in a clothing business. It kind of makes sense because we get them dirt cheap. Right?
Wear what you're selling.
Actually, mind you, I got this from the op shop for $4 like 5 years ago. So this kind of speaks what I'm talking about, right? But there's been instances where I was wise enough in the moment to know that these were learning situations, right? They weren't failures. But there's been a few of these. There's probably like one a year where you just like look back and you're like, what the fuck are you thinking? You know? And one of them that I always laugh about is big event in town, and I got asked to do the merch for it, and I was like, yep, great, I'll do the merch. I'm going to bring my heat press down. We're going to print out a bunch of transfers, and we're going to make stuff on the spot for people. People go like, can I get a medium white hoodie, and I'll get this design, and I'll put it in the center here, or I'll get a black set of a black shirt, or I'll get black pants. I'd have all of this stock and all these, and you do it all there. And I bought $15,500 worth of stock, and made all these prints and bought gazebos and tables, and got down there and had to hire a generator and this, that, and the other. And over the 2-day event, I sold $180 worth of stock.
No, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
What were you thinking?
Yeah.
You know what I was thinking at the time? With all of my experience that I had up until that point, I used the best information that was available to me, and I made decisions.
Yep.
And they were the wrong decisions. In hindsight, they were the wrong decisions.
Yeah.
I bet on assumptions that were incorrect.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, right. Okay.
And you know what I do now? When someone says, hey, can you replicate that thing that you did? Because I end up doing that same model. That was the first time I tried that model in real life. The next time I did it, I sold out of everything. You know what the difference is? I took 5% of the stock. And I sold out. So I did it until I sold out. So then there was urgency for it. The next time I did it, I added 20% of the stock that I took to the second time to that.
Right.
So now instead of having $15,000 worth of stock, I had $300 worth of stock and sold it all.
Yep.
And it works on repeat. So what do? We made a stuff up. We learnt from it.
Yep.
We expanded on it. And now when I do it, Brendan comes to me and says, hey, I've got this event. We got 300 people there. I want you to do the merch. Oh, I love that thing where you do the live action heat pressing. Can you do that? Yes, we can. And I'm going to take enough stuff for 50 people to make a purchase, and I'm going to sell out in 2 hours, and you're going to get your 30%. I'm going to get my 70%. You're going to have people that the next event they go to are going to make sure they get there early because they want to get their merch, and they know they're going to miss out if they don't.
Right. So you've marketed something really well there.
Right. Did I fuck up? Absolutely.
Yep.
Did I grow from it? Absolutely. Yep. And now I've got a thing that not only does it work, but nobody else does it, Brendan.
Yeah.
Nobody else does it.
Yeah, right. Well, maybe that's the model that you can make a quid out of. So don't worry about making the merch, sell the model.
It's
or train the model.
Let's I'm going to take a piss.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about your 4 terms.
Okay,
I'm
cool.
very interested in that.
No worries.
So, sorry, dog. Just give me a moment.
3 terms, 4 years each.
And just so I don't forget to say, Amanda, if you're listening, I just wanted to be completely honest. No offense. I love the question. I love that I was challenged on that. So, so the first thing that sort of comes to mind is like, obviously we met because I asked you some questions about getting into council. It was suggested to me that it was like maybe something that could be in my future. So I just wanted to talk to as many people as possible to get an idea of what the job was, whether it was a good fit. Is it something that I want to do? and your name was brought up multiple times. So you did 3 terms, totaling 12 years. Did you also, was there any other positions you played in?
Yes. Well, I was deputy mayor 3 times
Okay.
to 2 different mayors. Firstly, David Smith, and then Mayor Gary Brennan.
Yep.
I tried to become mayor twice. I didn't get there. Ran 4th, then ran 2nd. And then after that, I thought, well, I've run my race. And that's an important thing about knowing what you're doing in local government. I did 12 years. 12 years is as much as one should do, I believe. There are some people around there who have now been 16, 20 years, and I think one fellow down in Capel was there for 34 years.
Wow.
I don't believe that that's the way to go. I think you need to set yourself some goals if you go into public life, like a local government councillor. Absolutely choose 1 or 2 things that you're going to follow right through, rather than just making a decision on somebody's patio once a fortnight.
Yeah.
That's probably a bit glib, but anyway. And always remember that you're dealing with the public, and that the public, you're on the public purse is what I'm saying, and that people will ring you at different times and talk about things that are possibly just inane. I mean, there's a frog in my bird bath. What should I do? Right through to, look, there's some illegal building going on next door. I need to bring it to council's attention. Can you help?
Yeah.
Those type of things. But the main thing about being a councillor is you're there to serve people. It's on a local scale. It's on a smallish scale, I suppose, but it's relevant. People will bring you. They want you. You're their representative. Yeah. I've got this issue. What are you going to do? So you've got to be able to, have some sort of public face to people, and it is service, is what it is. I think, Jake. And if you're going to go into it, you've got to realise that you're a servant. You're servicing.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I think, one thing I learned from you, I'm pretty sure it was you that told me, you do 3 terms ideally. The first term you learn, the second term you execute, and the third term you mentor.
Yeah. Yeah, I do recall that. And I've got to say, there's a funny story to this, because you're not the only one, or the first one, or the last one to ask me about, how do I run for council? What do I do? And I've often said to people who I've been talking to, I've had 1 or 2 people I think I've put off. And I often thought about Jake when I thought, geez, as we walked away, and it was a really great conversation. I can recall it was down at the Plaza.
I'm glad you have that.
Yeah, it was at the Plaza. Yeah. And I recall thinking afterwards, geez, I hope I didn't put the poor bugger off. And that may have been the right thing to do, because maybe at the time it wasn't the thing to be done. Just to put a pause on your story, I think which I'm very interested in, by the way, I have probably too many questions, but the thing that I've really, I think, concluded on for now is that I said before we sat down, the purpose of sort of everything that I do outside of making a very valuable and rich life for my family and my future family is making sure that the city that my children will grow up in is as valuable as possible. Yes.
And that includes building, valuable community. It involves building valuable connections. There's so many elements to that I have to ask myself, how am I most able to produce these results? And there seems to be one of 2 ways. It's get very rich and make it happen, or be part of the decision-making process and say yes to the right things and no to the right things.
Yeah.
And you have to decide if you're going to be someone who asks the questions or someone who's going to be who answers the questions.
Yeah. And what you're talking about here is, in a way, practicing civics, because that's what we call it, civic duty.
Okay.
And you can do that without being on council, and you can do it in another way by being on a council, being elected to a council. Civics, I think, was something that we were brought up with, and I think contemporary people are also brought up with it. It's about trying to help out.
Yeah.
If you're a volunteer, you might be a volunteer at the Little Athletics or at school canteen, and hopefully in 6 years you're at school canteen.
I have no doubt.
doing the things that you do as a parent, contributing to the community of the school, which is the civic community.
Yep.
And I think that they were in earlier times teaching society and environment at school as a curriculum subject, and that involves civics. So civics should be two things. Yes, we need to have some education about civics to make sure that we remind people that this is how the place works. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And the second thing is that we have civics in us as just part of our innate being, part of society, part of our culture, that you've got some civic duty in you, whether or not it's just to mow your verge, which I do. Thank you, Council. I mow my own verge. You don't do it.
Yeah.
But I like to have a clean, neat street. When somebody walks past my house, they're going to look at it and say, oh, geez, that verge is nice and neat. Yeah, it's not my property, but it's my verge. So, and civics extends beyond that. It's going down to, the street parade, hanging out with a whole bunch of other people who live in your town. Yeah. Maybe saying g'day, having a conversation. Yeah. So I think civic duty is something that I took it up because I was an activist, environmental activist. Okay. Because I believe that, again, I'll come back to it, every critter is someone, every tree is a purpose, the creation, if you like. Yeah. It's something that we've got to respect a bit more than we do. When you drive over something with a D6 just because you can, and you want to put something else there, at least you should be doing some good somewhere else, because you've just destroyed a part of a living, breathing ecosystem. So I got on there because I believed that I could make a difference. And I was wise enough, I suppose, at the beginning, not to say that I'm any wiser than anybody else, but it may have been somebody else who told me, Brendan, make sure you pick one or two things to do over the period. No, it's not just a weekend, not just a Tuesday decision. It's something that you're going to concentrate. Again, I go back to access and inclusion. I tell you what, Jake, I was educated. I was educated by men and women in wheelchairs with no sight, with no hearing, with other disabilities, people living with disabilities. They told me. I had no idea. Yeah. Because I've worked as an able man all my life. My brothers and sisters were all able. Back in time, they put people with disabilities away from mainstream society. We stuck them in that room. Yeah. Yet I know people who are smarter than me, more intellectual than me, who just have bodies that are just wrapped up and not working. Yeah. So I learned a lot about that, and what I was able to do, they would say, Brendan, we'd like to do this. Can we do that? And I said, bloody oath, we can. What we're going to do is we're going to have a ramp into every business in Victoria Street so that you can get in there. Yeah. Or simple things like intersections. We reorganised the Plaza intersection where the Highway Hotel is, so that the lights were better synchronised and you could actually push the bloody button if you were in a wheelchair or otherwise disabled. People would say to me, some of the crew, and I was part of a bigger committee of people who are living with disabilities, they were saying, can we do this? And I'm saying, yeah, of course we can, because I'm the man who can take it back to council and say, hey, we're doing this. And if they said, oh, that's too expensive, Brendan, or we can't do that, I say, hang on a tick. You just appointed me as a chair of the Disability Access Inclusion Committee to get things done. What do you mean I can't do it?
Interesting.
It's that, in a way, combined. We talked a little bit earlier about leadership and power. Leadership is not power, and power is not leadership. Yeah, and we know that. But sometimes you put the two together. Leadership can then wield power when you need to do something.
It's almost part of the privilege of leadership.
That's a very good point. Those two words should never, ever be divided, privilege and leadership. It is a privilege. But back into council, I mean, where you're working with, in my day, you were working with 12 people and a mayor. So you had to get, it's all about arithmetic. You need 7. Yeah. And sometimes you didn't get 7. Then you either had to go home and, sort of lay awake thinking about how come you didn't get 7 when it was such a good cause. Yeah. And then work out what to do next. That's another thing you really you need to learn move on from decision making sometimes if you lose, because I hate losing, Dylan.
Yeah, well, we go back to the red car theory.
Yeah.
You know, there is a reality where I get what I want.
Yeah.
How do what is it? I mean, maybe I even have to compromise on what I want. Maybe that's how I get what I want, is by changing the want. Or do I change the perspective of how people are observing what I'm projecting to them? Maybe there's a communication problem. Maybe we need pictures instead of words.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to meet someone who's disabled. Maybe you need to understand the pain, right? Because I'm not saying this because I'm bored. I'm saying this because it came from somewhere.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
And I think to sort of dwell on another thing that Amanda said last week, and this was not her opinion, she just explained to me this was the opinion of people who are in council, that council is not a business.
No, it's not.
Well, this was my point of contention. I believe that when you're talking about how the city is going to spend the money of the constituents, that it in essence is a business. A business is relationships and transactions. Now, council is relationships and transactions. How you're going to spend that money and who's going to get paid to do what job. And in that, you sort of want, you know, the entrepreneurial mindset, from my point of view, there is nothing that is ever too expensive if the payoff is correct. I am never not rich enough to afford the thing that is the next step if it's going to get me to the step after.
Yeah, you've opened a can there. Firstly, the word business is sometimes restrictive, and it's used loosely. In the true sense of purpose, business is something that's an operation. Okay, it might not be for profit or loss, but you don't want to have a loss of capital. You don't want to have a loss of energy. I mean, just wasting it. So not a loss, a waste.
Yeah.
So in a way, a council is a business to operate in the, if you use business as operation, but it's not a conventional business to say that at the end of it we're going to make a profit in dollars. You know, the holy mammon.
Yeah.
A council considers a whole bunch of capital there. There's human capital, there's social capital, there's cultural capital, there's dollar capital, there's physical infrastructure that you've got to look after, and you've got to charge somebody at the gate,
Right.
sometimes, to make sure that you can afford to keep doing that. But it's not just simply a profit and loss sheet, P&L.
Agree.
It's got all of this, okay, we're doing this. God, that's costing us a lot of money. Yeah, but look at the outcome. We've got better educated people.
Money in this instance, it applies to business and council, is the indicator or token of how successful the effort that you're putting into it is.
It's not the money, it's the cultural outcome. So
Right.
if I use the term of saying that we're going to have a smoke-free zone, what's the outcome? Well, nobody's making any money because they're not selling fags, and they're not making profit at the government because they take so much tax.
Yeah.
What's the outcome? Healthier people.
But people are spending more money on sparkling water than they are cigarettes in that instance.
Well, there you go. There's a monetary outcome there.
Like
Yeah,
the first 6 weeks sucks.
Yep.
But now the money that I'm not spending on cigarettes, I'm spending on a gym membership. Who
Yep.
owns the gym?
Yep. And you're healthier not only physically but mentally.
Correct.
And the mental outcome, the capital that you're building,
Yeah.
is worthwhile for the next bit of the journey, which hopefully will be bringing up the children,
Right.
and bringing something to your community, to your school community, and your general community. So I guess all I'm saying here is that when you're talking about business, you tend to think about profit and loss in monetary terms, like the holy dollar.
Yep.
Whereas a council is not so much a business because it's providing outcomes that are for the good of the community, the civic outcome that is not. It can be measured in dollars, I guess.
I think the correlation here is the success of my business is not measured by how much money I have in my account, but how much free time I have with my fiance.
Yeah.
Right? But the more time I have with my fiance, the more money I typically have in my account.
Okay. So there's a nice little closed loop.
It doesn't run parallel, but it does go on itself.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that the thing that makes sense to me is, because this was all brought up with Amanda on the idea that there should be just not ideally, but just theoretically, if you got me and 2 other young businessmen in on council in this election, the sort of change that we could make. We don't have a majority vote. I mean, ideally, we'd get 5 of us in because then we can win everything we want, right?
Yep.
But if we can at least get 3 business-minded, young shakers and movers in council right now, perhaps we can move the needle just a little bit more than what it's being moved right now.
Yep.
And this is where the conversation started. Well, I don't think it's Amanda's belief from memory, but as a belief of people in council that you're not running a business. Well, just for the sake of the conversation, let's talk about Trump running America as compared to a politician running America. Trump is a businessman at heart. He's a businessman, transactions and relationships. Seems to be, since he got in there, the business of America, regardless of how you your perspective on tariffs and the front loading of pain in that economical situation, put all that aside, there seems to be some success that hasn't really been recognized in any other leadership recently, during my lifetime anyway, outside of, funding the whole war machine and how that makes its money. But let's not have that conversation.
Yeah, that's a big one.
The point that I'm making here is, outside of how you perceive the word business, I think it doesn't do any harm replacing people who don't have experience in business with people who do, just because of the fact that being in business, you are constantly having to climb mountains. You are constantly having to learn. You are constantly having to compromise on what you see as valuable, and understanding that it's not about you, it's about the customer. If we replace the word customer with constituent, maybe we get a better outcome, and we get that better outcome sooner. And in that sense, putting businessmen in the position of councillors is not a negative thing.
Okay, I can wear that. I think that putting anybody into a council with a different experience or a different level of experience, like take your champion cricketer or a businessman, like Jordan, or taking somebody who happens to be an artist. They all bring different experience. My jury is out a little bit as to whether or not, like, let's say we've got 9 people and they're all businessmen or business people, should I say?
I don't think that's healthy either.
No, and that's where I'm contemplating. Democracy is about getting the best cross-section of people to represent the community. If you have all men, dud. Have all women, dud. If you have all business people, I think you're going to shortcut yourself there. If you have all artists, oh God, that'd be a nightmare.
Oh, then it's really not about business. It's really pretty, but it's not about making money.
Yeah, and trying to get that balance. In my time in council, there were 13 of us, the mayor and 12 councillors, and sometimes it was spitting and fighting. To get something done. I found that most of the good stuff happened outside of the round table in the council.
Oh, of course.
Policy, bringing people into access and inclusion, people to come in and make some fundamental infrastructure changes. So it was more or less co-design. So hey guys, you just designed yourself a car park. You can't get into it. Your car can get into it and get out of it. But if you've got somebody who's nana or somebody with a pram trying to get out of that bloody car park, you can't get out of it because you've got steps or barriers. So it was a case of trying to bring that from the outside in. And that was an infrastructure change. It was almost a design change. So it didn't have a lot to do with actually buying or selling or business about it. It was a sort of a nebulous thing in a way, although very tangible for people who've got disabilities. You know, if you get to a point half a kilometre down the track and you think, oh, this is great, this is going to end a loop, and then suddenly halfway down you've got a set of stairs and you're in a wheelchair, you've got a problem. You have to either turn around or get somebody to carry you up. Not
all of my business is about making money.
No.
Right now I'm in the process of perfecting or getting better systems. We have a system that works, but I want a better system. I want things to be automated. I want customers to have a different experience what they're having right now. There's a lot of touch points. Let's minimize that. Now, yes, that makes more money in the long term for me because I'm saving time. I'm getting more output. I have more time to market or more time to this, more time to that. But my business isn't essentially about making money. Again, the indicator, the token of is this working is typically there's more money. Now, the one thing that is highlighted from everyone who has to do with council or making decisions is nobody has any bloody money. Now, that is not an entrepreneurial mind saying that. If the project is valuable enough to the the city, to the people, to the ones who are saying yes and the ones who are making other people say yes, it can be $100 million. We'll find it.
Yeah.
I was in a thing the other night talking about Troy Boticle's artificial reef. The people in that room could pay for it. The money's not a problem.
Yeah.
It's getting the people who, sign the dotted line and make the decisions and do the convincing or do the education phase to the town. It's like that's where the bottleneck seems to be.
Yeah, and there's a couple of other things that come into that. One of them is bureaucracy. Bureaucracy, believe it or not, is there for a purpose.
100%.
It's a filter.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned the artificial reef. I think having an artificial reef out there is a good idea. It's got to be in the right place. I don't believe it's going to be at the Clam or Hungry Hollow.
Yeah, they're the two initial sites.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, you don't think it should be there?
Well, certainly at the Hungry Hollow little reef there, I think is a living, breathing ecosystem at the moment. It is something that is got cultural significance to people who go there. And if you go down there and have a look at the people, you know how it's got a little lagoon there?
Yeah.
And people swim in it? That's a natural system that has been culturally significant for a long, long time. I'm not talking about cultural significance to Indigenous people. It may well have cultural significance, but for people at Bunbury, that's a place that they like as it is.
Yeah.
I've seen one model, and it's only one model, where we're going to put a whole bunch of granite rock out from that particular lagoon.
That's a proposed project, as to my belief.
Okay, I don't want to pick it apart, and I don't want to be negative, but for a start, I worked in natural resource management for many years. One of the prime problems with that is using granite rock. Nothing grows on granite rock. Granite rock is hard.
Really?
Yeah, you can get a limpet grow on it, but that reef out there is actually limestone. So limestone, as you know, is porous. Little sea grasses get on it. They stick a root into it, and they grow off and they flutter off.
Right.
There's a whole bunch of reasons why you don't use granite. It's a great surf reef, because, like it does what it's supposed to do. It's as hard as the hobs of hell.
Yeah.
And it creates a wave. But it doesn't create an ecosystem. And if you go down to the Blxck, the backwash, and look at what's growing on there, a little bit of algae, a few limpets, that's it. It's not an ecosystem.
Right.
So the pros and cons of using that place for the artificial reef, if I was thinking as an environmentalist, I would be going, hey, buddy, you're just about to destroy something that's taken 7,000 years to evolve, which is how long the coastline's been there, by the way. Moving in also, by the way, too. So, anyway, so in trying to make a decision on the artificial reef, everybody's got to say, right, okay, what's the right thing to do here in context of, okay, if we put it there, is it going to erode one side and accrete on the other side? What's it do to the erosion on the side where you may have a footpath or whatever, a car park? All of those things have to be done. Now, I'm going to get back to bureaucracy.
Yeah.
The way bureaucracy works is you've got this whole bunch of legislations, you've got policies, you've got guidelines, you've got everything in between you and what you want to achieve.
Yep.
And you've got to tick them off as you go. People say, I hate bureaucracy, red tape, green tape, brown tape, black tape, blue tape, for God's sake, pink tape. Before I get to where I want to go, you've got to be able to get through the tape. People criticise that colour tape. I'm saying that, well, the reason that we have tape is to prevent dumb things happening. And indeed, you'd have a piggery next door to you if you didn't have red tape.
Look, the opposite of that is the tape exists because dumb things have happened.
Also true. Yes, that's the multi-dimensional thing about it, Jake, is that I don't like red tape. For the sake of having red tape is just dumb, because dumb things have happened.
Yeah.
But if you didn't have that tape somewhere between it, dumb things would happen and continue to happen.
First day we moved in here, the sprinklers had been on and there was water on the porch, which is tiled.
Yeah.
And I ran out there and I fell over and I hit my knee.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And
done that.
Now I walk to the car.
Yeah.
And the days that I forget that and I run, what happens?
Yeah.
I slip.
Base over apex.
So you learn that there's a reason why just with yourself, the internal monologue rule, like we take our time, we wash the dishes properly, we clean the toilet after we've used it, all that, there's a reason.
All those things.
Even if you forget the reason, there is a reason and it has a purpose.
Yeah.
And the situation that we're talking about, government, local government, is the metaphor, the example that I use with Amanda when we were talking about this bureaucracy is on a mine site, you're walking up a step and you trip. So there's got to be a solution to that problem. So now they paint it yellow, right? And then you trip on it a second time, so they put up a sign. You trip on it a third time, so they get rid of the step and make it a ramp. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So every time something happens, there has to be an equal and opposite reaction to it to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
That's basic safety 101.
How do we stop this from happening again? And that's why I say stupid things have happened. So then they're like, oh, orange tape. And then another stupid thing happens. If we had the orange tape, it's like, I know, but it happened again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Red tape.
Yeah.
Blue tape. Pink tape.
It's an interesting sort of conversation to have about how we do things in Australia, for example. And I'm not deriding or other words poo-pooing the idea of the artificial reef. What I am saying is that I have a great idea every day myself, like get out of bed and think, oh, that'd be a good idea. Does it happen? That was pretty dumb, Bren, and not really going to happen. So there are checks and balances, and that's what I worked in for 13 years as a land use planner.
Yep.
Trying not to discourage people and be negative about their project, but to say, here's the bar. This is what you need to jump over to get there. Oh, why do I have to do that? Well, you just happen to be having a footprint on the earth that is going to impact not only the earth, the creation, again, if I want to call it that, but the neighbour. Here's a neighbour 40 metres away and you're going to use a rock breaker for 3 years. Do you think that might have a little bit of a problem? Oh, what do I have to do? Well, what you could do is get the rock out and take it to another site, which is 1 kilometre away from the nearest sensitive premises, as we would refer to it. So in being a problem solver, it's not about saying you can't. It's about trying to do something within the framework or within the parameters. It's interesting about the artificial reef because that's just one thing we're talking about, and you're not old enough, I guess, to remember it, but the inner harbour that we have in Bunbury was built by cutting an estuary in two. It was the Blxck estuary, which was one thing. All the water came in and out of the where we now have the plug or the floodgates. We decided we're going to cut the whole thing in two, and we'll put a harbour in the middle of it. Now, what did it do to the ecosystem? This happened in 1971. And I can use other examples of it where we do stuff and we don't look down the long track, like the Northern Jarrah Forest. They are stripping the Northern Jarrah Forest to get aluminium. They're bauxite. So here we have a living, breathing system in a biodiverse hotspot on this planet, and we're just wiping it out on the basis, we're going to put it back. Well, you can't put it back. You cannot do that. You have basically stripped all of the substrate, taken the aluminium out, and put a bit of dirt back on, say you're going to grow a few jarrah trees. It doesn't work that way. So the question is the aluminium worth more than the jarrah forest? No, it's not. You can go out the middle of nowhere, out at perhaps the Tanami Desert where you've got nothing but spinifex. It's not biodiverse, I will tell you now.
Yeah.
And you've got aluminium in that dirt. Well, it's too far away, it's too expensive. Well, how much is your jarrah forest worth?
Yeah.
Just so that you can bring the comparisons. And I'm not anti-development and I'm not anti-economy, and I don't say we're going to lock everything up and go back to the cave. But there is respect that you must have for the natural environment, which after all sustains us.
This ties into a part of the human map, using the metaphor of Grand Theft Auto that I spoke about before.
Yep.
Is that on a time scale, you're never going to illuminate backwards and forwards. You're only going to see 100 years if you're lucky.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
The ability to understand what your impact will do to the generations to come, which is where I talk about, like, all right, the decisions that I make aren't actually not for me anymore. They're for my unborn children.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Which is
grandchildren, great-grandchildren.
Connects you, that then illuminates that future perspective. And you go, well, fucking all right. I'm actually thinking we're going to live in this house their whole life. So I start planting plants now for 60 years' time.
Yep.
And I start renovating things as if, they're going to grow up there and they're going to, they're going to, all of those conversations, And I think, this is sort of bleeding into an area that's very relevant at the moment because I had a conversation with someone quite close to me who I asked the question you should never ask, who are you voting for in the upcoming election in a, for our local federal candidate.
Yep.
And, he said, bloody, Sue Chapman's a tree hugger and she led the court case against the Bunbury out of Ring Road and this, that, and the other. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he didn't say Sue, actually. He said she.
Yeah.
And I said, you're talking about Sue Chapman, I'm guessing. He goes, yeah. I said, where'd you learn this?
Yeah.
He goes, it's in between my YouTube videos, and I'm like, all right, so just to be very clear about what you're saying, a Liberal-funded ad told you about who you shouldn't vote for.
Yeah. Attack ad,
a smear campaign.
Yeah.
No, so it's not Liberal. Why are you saying it? You think that ad was paid for by someone?
Yeah.
By someone? Do your research and check out who it says at the end. Now, look, I'm not trying to swing any votes. I honestly don't even know who I'm going to vote for yet, and I probably won't until the day. Right? I have a relationship with both candidates. I've had both of them on the podcast. I have time for both of them, and I speak to both of them on a semi-regular basis.
Yeah.
Right? And I think at the end of the day, I'm going to be more swayed by the personal relationship I have with them over the things that they're going to do for my. And I know even that's a bit irresponsible, but that's how the human mind works.
Yeah.
Right?
It does.
Now, I want to explore a little bit about that idea that Sue Chapman is a bad person because she straps herself to a tree or something.
Well, it's a very good point you bring up about elected representatives. I always go on who is the best candidate. That's my personal philosophy. I've been a swinging voter. A lot of people wouldn't realise this, that I voted as much for one side as I have for the other side in my life because I have solely looked at candidates as above, the party. I can't stand political parties. I think that they're just shrunk into themselves, so they're only representing a very minority of people. That's why I'm a fan of independence for starters. But if I was to stack up the current candidates in the federal election, I know who the best candidate is. And I will say it's Sue Chapman. However, when I put them 1 to 7, and I've done this is a parlour game for me because I'm a political animal in a lot of terms.
Right.
So I've actually got the 7 of them, and I've looked at, okay, Brendan, honestly, mate, who's the best people 1 to 7? And I've done that, and it's not fair here to go into that because the person on the bottom then sits around feeling very indignant that I should rate them number 7.
Right.
Or number 8, is it? No, 7. There's 7 candidates. So I'm a person who, having summed up the number of people, looked at the ones I know, explored who they are, I clearly know who I'm going to vote for, and it's not a party. A party is one of those aspects of it. But it's an interesting conversation to have is when you come back to civics, you've got to have some values to call something. It's not just about saying, I like the colour of their car. They've got a red car. I've got a white car. It's about saying, well, okay, where are the values here? What do they represent, and how can they fit into the civic administration, if you like, not civic administration, but the civic being of our community. Right. And it comes back to local government. You've got a set bunch of people on local government at the moment. And I can tell you, honestly, there's a couple of them that have been there too long.
Okay.
That's the ego thing. And I mentioned I'd been there 12 years. That was an absolute outlier for me. 12 years? Gee, Brent, maybe you could have got out after 8. But I did the last 4 because I became an elder, if you like, one of the wise.
Well, that then goes into the mentor stage that we spoke about.
Exactly right. So, being there beyond that, I mean, I've seen people who've been there for too long. They should be gone for any good they're doing now. They're warming a seat. Where was I going to go with this? On making judgments about who runs the place.
Yeah,
we all run the place, by the way.
Yeah, 100%.
There's no getting out of that. If you're on the planet, you've got a responsibility and accountability for it. Mm-hmm. Might be only a little minute part because somebody's more, sort of taking it as a career. But if you're there, you've got to make those decisions. And I make my decisions about candidates on ability. Have I met them? When I look them in the eye, are they looking at me, or are they looking past me for the next person? That type of thing. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure where we're going with this part of the conversation, but it does loop back onto all of us being part of civics, being part of the community, and doing something. Even if it's to help somebody across the road. The old boy can't quite make it, and he's worried about the traffic. Hey, come with me. I'll hold them up.
Yeah.
And we do that. I mean, a good deed, it's always worthwhile. And that's something you need to think about when you're going into public life. You're not there for your own ego, for your own jollies. If you are, you shouldn't be there. It's service. And I've spent a long time in service, either public service one way or the other. I'm a volunteer still.
Yep.
For my sins, I'm the treasurer of the Leschenault Community Nursery, which is a community enterprise. So I'm essentially running a small business.
Yeah.
And it is, and I get nervous at budget time because I budget.
Yep.
And we've got 6 employees.
Yep.
So, I know they've got mortgages, they've got families, they've got kids going to school, all of those type of things. So, you do sweat a bit on it. I do it as a volunteer. I don't make any money out of it. Take on all the responsibility of an incorporated body, which is even harder now. And you probably know volunteers are shrinking. You'll learn that when you start fronting up to T-ball.
Yeah.
Being the dad on the line. Oh, we need the lines marked out on the oval today. Jake, what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing the lines apparently.
Yeah, tuck shop, all of those things. But I think, again, looping back on the whole conversation is about in your own consciousness. You're not there just to, exist and die.
Yeah.
You're to contribute to the greater good. And I've been doing a lot of work with a ABC club, we call it. It's a consciousness club. There's only 3 of us in it, Aidan, Brendan and Christine.
Nice.
And we have our little meetings every now and then and talk about consciousness, usually over a wine or a beer and a feed.
Yep.
And consciousness is something that I've now begun to think about a lot more, and inherited consciousness, the passing on of consciousness, that's your own consciousness to your children or to your neighbours or to whoever else is the inheritor of your space.
Yep.
It's a bit of a mysterious thing and a little bit philosophic and esoteric, as we say.
Yeah.
But it's damn good fun. And if I channel the past in my history world and bring forward something, a foible or an achievement or a 15 minutes of fame, and pass it on to somebody who now has got a lot more blue sky ahead of them than I, then that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You've actually brought forward something.
I think there's inherently something in this process of having these conversations and learning all of this. Like, the idea is I'm learning as much as I can so I have something to teach. And then I make sure that there is somebody to teach so that all my learnings don't go to waste.
I just love that. I'm learning something so that I can move forward to teach. Is that original? I like that.
The infinite intelligence gave it to me just now, yeah.
Well, what a great philosophy. I am learning something now so that I can go forward and teach.
I have digital mentors, Gary V, Alex Hormozy. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him.
I don't know the gentleman, no.
So they often will post these quotes that are summarized lessons down into 5 words, right?
Yeah, right.
And it's crazy because you get what took them sometimes a quarter of their lifetime to learn, and they give it to you as a quote, and then you can apply that quote to hopefully things that are going on in your life, and you can get immediately 5-year better results. And I get that with Jordan. I go to him with a problem. He's seen this problem before in 3 different ways, and he goes, all right, let's take all the elements involved, break it down to its finest point, find out what the solution is, and then apply that to the problem and see if it works.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what you're doing with a mentor, is instead of me having to deal with this problem over the next 5 years, I have a 3-hour conversation with him. We solve it.
Yeah.
And then the next time I have a problem, maybe I don't need to go to Jordan about that one. Maybe I can just figure that out with all the problems we've already solved and go, hang on, there's a bit of a system here. There's a structure. Maybe that apply. Can we do this? Okay, let me call this person. Okay, I can. So if we then take that structure and blow it out and go, right, the way that I'm dealing with problems is going to be able to be improved on 10 times better for the next generation. But in order to get to that point, I need to do my bit.
Yep.
Right?
You're the link man.
That's right.
In a way.
And the whole reason that we have white walls and a ceiling and we don't have the rain fall on us is because generations ago, humans decided that sucks.
Yeah.
You know?
And we didn't really like the cave at the time.
Didn't like the cave. The round walls weren't it.
Yeah.
Right? The muddy feet weren't it. No. You know, take your shoes off at the door. That's where we're at in humanity right now. Take your shoes off at the door.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the next generation, but I do know that I have a responsibility within my existence and my generation.
Yep.
And to summarize that in a way that's meaningful to the conversation is I got to learn now so I know what I'm teaching.
Yeah. On your watch.
On my watch. And also, the follow-up is if there's no one to teach, then it's for nothing.
Yeah.
So don't destroy the world and have babies.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's always been a matter of balance. It's simple. That's a simple word, be for balance. You can't go to extremes. It's the same as we were talking about alcohol, drugs and rock and roll.
Right.
If you have that 24/7, and we weren't talking about alcohol, we were talking about white women in song actually, but you get what I mean. It means that if you're going to indulge yourself in one thing all the time, hey man, you're going to get not only used to it, but you might get addicted to it and you might end up it destroying you rather than you using that.
Yeah. Well, I had this conversation with myself just recently. Is it Bukowski?
Yeah, Charles Bukowski. Yep.
Like
great writer,
womanizer, drunk.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Ugly as all hell too.
Right.
Yeah.
So then you go. This is going to be a similar structure to something I said earlier. You'll see the connection here, but I then go. And there's also who wrote It? Stephen King.
Yep. There
are particular books that he doesn't remember writing because he was so drunk and high on cocaine.
Ah, right. Okay.
Yeah. That's the the law.
Bukowski would probably say that too,
right?
If he was still alive, which he's not.
And then you've got who's homeboy, part of the 27 Club, did heroin, made amazing music. And you think the connection to the muse is the narcotic.
Yeah.
And you don't take a couple brilliant few who had that as their story and apply that to every creative.
Yeah.
I've never been more powerful, more awake, more accessible to the infinite since I've been sober.
Yeah, right.
You know, like, oh, wow, how great is life when I'm stoned and I'm fucking connected, bro? No. You're half there.
You're artificially enhanced.
There is room for that in life, I believe, you know, but I also believe that there is no room for it during all of life.
Well, I think it's what you've said is absolutely true. There have been many, many people, many great works that have been created by people who have been stoned on the fong, so to speak. In my generation, we had a philosophy: if you couldn't grow it or brew it, you didn't use it.
Yeah.
And that was basically saying that God stuck these plants or this substance or whatever it was on the earth for you to use. Once you start using test tubes and brewing stuff up with bleach in the toilet bowl,
it's something else.
There's another level. I get back to Yoko Ono. Yoko Ono also had not an excuse or a reason. John Lennon and Yoko Ono were using heroin at one stage in their career for a brief period. And when they were quizzed about it, Yoko Ono said, we were two artists celebrating. That was her excuse, if you like, or reason. They didn't stay with it, obviously. They were celebrating with it. So it was an interesting thing that stuck with me, two artists celebrating.
Wow.
Okay. It's a bit like going out and getting, 2 or 3 bottles of champagne after a big event and getting yourself really whacked out. You know, and champagne, great drink, by the way, I might add. But, to celebrate on being high is different from being dependent. And
100%.
There's a long conversation to be had about that because stimulants drugs have been around for a long, long time, going back, you can go back into, sort of cavemen, if you like, if we go back to that cave again. But there's been a lot of human detritus along the way because of that, human fallout, breakdown. There's a lot of evil in modern drug taking.
I agree.
And it's another topic. But I think if we get back to being civic-minded, where we started this with councils and politicians and governments and the way our structure in Australia works. We're very lucky in Australia that we have our form of democracy. And I've said it again, the compulsory voting, the fact that you get out once every 3 years or once every 4 years or once every 2 years and you mark your pencil on that little ballot slip is a privilege.
Yeah.
And it's something that people are wise to be focused on. Because it means that they can live in their street, they can live in their neighbourhood, they can live in their suburb with some order, knowing that they can then indulge themselves in the other things of life, which are thinking, raising children, loving your dog, tending your garden, being part of some sort of tribe, if you like. But, I think in Australia we're underpinned by civics. There is civilized behaviour.
Yep.
Don't come into my house and piss in the corner.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, you don't do it. You wouldn't do it. And I say to a lot of people who are not necessarily greenies, but might be a fisherman or a fisher person or an angler. So, you go out in your boat, you stick with the bag limit. Oh, yeah, of course I do. Oh, you're a greenie, are you? Oh, no. But, you have the rules and the regulations.
Yeah.
And the civil mindedness of people, the civic mindedness of people to make sure that we can all maintain what we have.
I think there's a confusion that surrounds, the overarching topic is politics. There is a real confusion, like even explaining to this person I was talking about, having that conversation about Sue Chapman, is not understanding that you've been marketed to by the opposition. Like you don't understand fundamentally that someone has paid to alter your mindset on...
That's correct.
Right?
Yeah.
I think the idea that politics is something that's out there, that's not in my map, that's been discovered for the majority of people, especially my age and younger, I don't know this person. Sue who? Ben who? What are we talking about? Blue? Who cares? You know? I'm literally just trying to make enough money to pay my rent. Right? There's a great quote that I always sort of rehearse to people that have that mindset when they talk to me. Like, I'm just going to vote Labor because, my dad voted Labor and he voted, it's always been Labor, so I'm just going to do that. It's like, take a part in politics before politics takes a part in you.
Yeah.
At the moment, it doesn't affect you. But trust me, if there comes a point where you get conscripted to go to war, you're going to wish you voted for the other side.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that is the thing that will happen if you don't vote. But like, as I said before, 6 years ago I was a truck driver and now I'm sitting here having this conversation. And the more that I learn about how shit happens, the more I realize it's important that I understand the process.
Yeah.
And yes, life is hard and time is limited, but you need to spend it focusing on the right things, because if you don't, there is a higher likelihood that you're going to be doing shit that you don't want to do. And it might be simply in the form of paying more rent than what it's worth.
Yep.
And it might be the other end of the spectrum and dying in a field somewhere for a reason that you don't even know why.
Yeah, and that's it's well worth remembering for people, and we've got to make an effort in Australia that politicians are seen below used car salesmen to some extent. Yet they're the people that we entrust to make sure that our system keeps working right. Yep. That we do have hospitals for people who are crook, that we do look after the less fortunate, and not everybody's blessed with an intellect that can make a quid and live really well for the rest of their life. There's a lot of shit out there that can occur that puts you back. Homelessness, for example, major effort needs to be made, and it's not about some guy you see pushing a trolley with dirty dreadlocks and he hasn't had a bath for a week. It's about teenagers who are for some reason have lost their home, they're couch surfing, older women who have not worked, they've raised families, which means they have worked, and suddenly they've lost a husband for one reason or another and now have got nothing. and they're living in a car. And there are middle-class people out there who've, for whatever reason, been screwed.
Yeah.
And they are now homeless. I'm very fortunate. I have a home. You're fortunate to have a home here, and you're able to make an income to make sure you sustain it and your children after.
Yeah.
So if I flip back to politics is the wrong word, I think. I like the use of the word civics because we're all part of that collective for the common good.
Right.
And we select people to, okay, here's your job. You only got one job. It's to look after all of us, make sure that you make the right decisions, and they do not have to be parties.
Right.
You don't have to have a Liberal Party, a Labor Party, a Green Party, a trumpet of patriots, whatever they call themselves, a One Nation or a Christian party or a this party or that party. They become automatically tribal. And when you've got 2 tribes or 3 tribes or 4 tribes, you've got this difference. So we've got it's not necessarily to say let's just abolish all parties tomorrow, but let's go and choose the candidate that's standing in your seat who you think has got the highest calibre to act on your behalf.
Yes, agree.
They may belong to a party, by the way.
Yeah.
And I've known a few politicians in my years of being a lobbyist and being an advocate and being a councillor.
Yep.
I've met at least one Prime Minister.
Wow.
Go through the other lots of...
Tell me it was Howard.
It was.
Really?
Sorry. I've met 2 Prime Ministers because I met him as well. I was thinking the one I met down in Bunbury was Tony Abbott.
Wow. Not as cool. Man, John Howard's the fucking goat.
He was. He's the old generation of politician.
Yeah.
He was the last of them.
He was.
And I always look on it. Who was the first Prime Minister that was younger than me? That's the secret.
Wait. Interesting.
Yeah, because the Prime Ministers that are younger than me mark the demarcation between the old and the new.
Wow.
So you're still too young at this stage of the game, but keep this in mind. One day somebody will be elected as Prime Minister of Australia that will be younger than you are.
Yeah.
And mark that point.
That's very interesting.
It's a bit of another parlour game, really, when you think about it.
It's a perspective I've never considered.
Yeah.
There's 2 things. I'm just going to... my notes are all crazy. I look back and I'm like, I have no idea what that was about, but I'm just going to write...
Notes are good, particularly when you look at them later and you're taking a totally different interpretation than what was there before.
Yeah, or you draw pictures and you're like, I don't know if it's a flag or a person.
Right.
So when I was considering running for council, which let's talk about the trajectory, okay? You could start somewhere with starting this business in a caravan, marketing the hell out of everything I was doing to make that business into something, which is a clothing brand. It already was sort of when it was a coffee van 10 years ago, but had a big break, truck driving, kept the name, kept the brand going. Started back off as a brand, moved back to Bunbury from living in a caravan in Mandurah during COVID times. Got a house in Kerry Park, built it up, got machinery, got equipment, got a bit of stuff going on, heavily involved in volunteer things, everything I led. It wasn't really me participating in other people's things. It was, let's go do a cleanup. I'll organise this. I'll organise that.
Yep.
I was nominated as Citizen of the Year a few years ago. Didn't win, but got a nomination. During that, I had a mate who was on council for the Shire of Dardanup, and he's taken me around and shaken everyone's hands and met all the big names and take these people out for coffee, meet them, get to know them. Everyone that I went out for coffee with would give me, I'd ask at the end, who's 2 people I should speak to? This is how I end up speaking to you because I got your name a few times. I then, with the information that I learned from people like you, would then talk to people my age and younger and be like, here's what I'm sort of thinking about doing. Would like still testing, test. Would you vote for me? Oh, yeah. Well, where do I vote? Well, when there's an election. When's the election? Well, when the local election, it's on this day. Well, where does it happen? And then you start to tell them, like, and you know what it means if I'm councillor? No?
Yeah. So there's a bit of a gap there, isn't there?
There's a massive bit of education that needs to happen.
Yeah. One of the interesting things about, of course, local government elections in Bunbury, it's all postal voting. You can actually go out and vote at a polling booth, but there's usually a handful of people go there.
Well, the percentage of people, population versus who votes, right?
Yeah, it's only about in Bunbury last time it was only about 30%.
Crazy.
30% because we had a mayoral election. They tend to come out to vote for the mayoral election. By the way, there's one happening this October in Bunbury.
The local or for mayor?
Local,
Yeah.
Mayoral. The mayor of Bunbury is a position that's up for grabs, up for voting. Usually when the mayoral election on is, you get a little bit over 30%.
Yeah.
When it's just straight for the councillors and not a mayor, it's usually under 30%. So that's only a few. And most of the people who vote are older.
And with the population of the city of Bunbury, somewhere between 35 and 45,000.
I actually got the figure. It's 33,800.
Okay.
I got that the other day.
33,800.
Yep, 34.
30%, we're talking.
Yeah, less than 9,000.
Right?
Yeah.
I have 4,800 followers and most of them are from Bunbury.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah, okay.
And this sort of bleeds into my next thing, which is an analogy of my potential running and how the system works in general, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to run for council. I'm not, but
yeah, the hypothetical is you're going to.
I'm going to run for council, right? Now, I've got a T-shirt printing business and and I do sign writing as well. I have a vinyl cutter and printer. So I'm like, well, this is easy. I'm going to print 1,000 signs because at the moment, if you ask anyone in town, there are two people running for this seat, Ben and Sue. Why? Because they're the only ones who have got signs up.
That's correct, yeah.
The other ones have got little signs, but Ben and Sue, massive signs. Name, face, party.
Brand.
Right? Brand.
Yep.
So, all right, rinse and repeat. I know how this works.
Yep.
Jake, Kerr, do it all in black and white. That's my brand.
Yep.
Black ink. We're not going to say black ink, but you know what's going on.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to use every resource that I know what works. I'm going to do podcasts about it. I'm going to talk to influential people. I'm going to create clips, put money behind it, promote it, advertise just to young people because I don't want the old vote. I can just get a bunch of new people to vote. And all the people who are sitting in their position that want to keep it, you can talk to your audience. If I want to talk to them, it's literally just changing the demo on my ads and it's like that, right? But here's where it gets interesting. I want to print 1,000 core flute signs. Now, I'll provide the ink and the print and the time for free, but I need the core flute signs, right? So I go to my mate who runs this business and say, hey, man, do you want to put a bit of money in and support this? And when I'm in, I'll make sure whatever's going on goes your way. Not like that, but like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you're creating a business opportunity, so he's in the pool.
Hey, 100%. And then I go to my other mate with a business and say, hey, I'm going to print out 10,000 shirts and I'm going to do all the printing for free, but I need someone to provide the shirts. It's going to, hey, Jake, there's the money.
Yeah.
We know how this works, right? Now, we're talking on a local scale right now, local scale, just to get me into city council. Now, this isn't even a crazy example because I print shirts and I print signs. And I know the cost for those people to enter that interest for me to make that happen is nothing. 1,000 core flute signs doesn't cost that much. 10,000 shirts doesn't cost that much. Yes, it's expensive, but in the grand scheme of the investment for their business, it's not that much at all.
Right.
And the potential payoff, right? Nothing is too expensive if it provides the step after the next.
Yeah.
Right?
Hence, political donations is where we're coming in here.
That's why this is how the whole shit works.
Yeah.
Because how this works on the tiny scale is how it works on the major scale. And this is the importance of independent versus party.
Yep. Absolutely. Jake, and can I just bring a quick stat into it? I know we don't like stats, or I do, but a lot of people don't. In the lead up, the 12-month lead up to the 2022 federal election, the parties and independents spent $418 million in 12 months leading up to the federal election of 2022. Of that, only 21 million was spent by independents. So 21 out of 418 million. And guess who was the biggest spender? Clive Palmer spent about 113 million of that entire amount on his own to win one seat.
So the question that follows that is, what is the value of winning that seat in a dollar amount?
Absolutely zip, because he got no value whatsoever. He spent 113 million on, might be plus or minus a couple of million on that, but it was in the 100 million plus to win one seat and piss a lot of people off who thought, who is this buffoon with too much money?
Yeah.
And literally that's what he is. He's a character on our landscape. You're thinking, what the fuck's going on here? Whereas the other parties, obviously Liberal and Labor Party, Liberal Party generally funded by the captains of industry, your Gina or your, Kerry Stokes or somebody up the chain, and the Labor Party primarily funded by unions, the Australian Workers Union, but a lot of both those sides, of course, had mums and dads. The Greens, on the other hand, are funded largely by philanthropic people, people who have got very rich by some means or another and decided they're going to tithe their richness to a Green Party. And then, of course, you've got other parties as well. The One Nation, who funds them, I don't know. But
I think for clarity here, and you might have to fill in the gaps of my naivety here, but I'm not so stupid as to say that independents aren't funded by business as well.
That's correct. And Sue Chapman has been funded partially by Climate 200.
Right.
Climate 200, by the way, is not Simon Holmes a Court. Certainly not. I donated to Climate 200 myself. It has 45,000 donors across Australia.
Right.
That goes into Climate 200 because Climate 200 is saying, hey guys, climate crisis is real, let's do something. And then they distribute the money from their fund to people who they think as independents will represent at least the planet.
Okay.
Amongst other things. But you're right. Business people fund all types of things.
We have to talk about the business who puts money towards the campaign. For the example, it's my campaign. Now, does that business who's paying for the corflute signs, does he pay for my corflute signs? Or does he pay for this guy over here that doesn't have an Instagram following, that doesn't have a podcast, that isn't influential in Bunbury, that doesn't really have a chance of winning?
Probably not.
It makes me more valuable, right? Because I'm more likely to get in. Now, does it really matter who I am? Or does it matter that I'm going to win?
Okay, it matters that you have the integrity to undertake the office. That's the only thing that matters with me when I look at somebody who comes and they've got a bright, shiny suit on or a fantastic T-shirt, as you have. I'm looking there and saying, right, has this person got some integrity about them? Have they got an ethic? Are their morals right? Or am I looking at somebody who really is wanting to get in there for the ego trip, the power, the corruption perhaps? And I would make my mind up on that. And I've got enough savvy, and I'm not saying everybody will look at it this way, but you've got to be sure that the people that are representing your democracy in Canberra, in Perth, or in Bunbury have the integrity to carry out that job. And you will always have corruption. It's the nature of human.
Well, this is the whole point. This is the whole point that I'm making, is because I'm not a bad person, but I told you how I would do it if I was going to do it.
And I think that then you've got to break it down. The first thing you've got to have is integrity. And then you've got to have purpose. And you've got to have some sort of system as well. I don't want to go and elect somebody who's got the integrity but is as useless as tits on a bull.
Yep.
What's the purpose of that?
Execution is a big deal.
It is. And I'll go also the next step. You'll never, ever make every decision correctly. And I just digress. I was a cricket umpire for 30 years.
Right.
And as a cricket umpire, I hoped I'd never make a mistake, but I know I will.
Right.
And you're nowhere to hide when you do make a mistake. You're out in the middle of the ground and you've got 11 blokes looking at you because you've given it either out, not out, and it was out, or a batsman mumbling as he walks off the ground saying, well, I wasn't out, So what I'm saying is that when electing a person or selecting a person to run and to backing a person, the person who's selling the corflutes, if that person is just providing those corflutes on the basis of he's my mate and I'm going to get an inside run on the tender at council next time, whoa, that calls into question their integrity and your integrity as well.
Yep.
And I was never ever offered a bribe in 12 years. There you go.
Interesting.
Nobody came up to me and said, hey, Brendan, can you do this here? People tried to influence you.
Yeah.
And if it was a good cause, yeah, sure, I can support that. If it was something that you thought was dodgy, you're just looking at it and going, Yeah, okay, see you later, mate. Or,
got lumps on it.
Thanks to the coffee, good chat.
Yeah.
But, yeah, there's a lot of things to be considered here. And in civics, you always got to have civic duty in front of your own ego and everything else that goes with it.
Yeah. And I think, if I dwell on my experience in the past 5 years of business, I've had 3 times where businesses, one of them a significantly big business, has, I would say, seen the skills or the achievements from afar and gone, oh, you would be a good operator within our economy, economy, environment, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
And offered me crazy things.
Yeah, here's a gold watch. Or better than a gold watch is a set of golden handcuffs.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think my thing has always been this business is valuable. The value is measured off how much time I spend with my dog, with my now fiance, right? And in the future will be with my children.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of it is like, I said this when you first came over. It's like we're kind of looking at like, should we get into a commercial spot and be able to really expand on this? It takes me out of the shit that matters.
Yeah.
The true indicator of this being a good thing is that I'm here and then I'm doing it with the people that I love. And even to the point where I transact with people that I respect and I want their work, I'm happy to say no. If we don't align, it's all good, brother. There's plenty of money.
Yeah.
There's plenty of money out there to go find. And if I'm looking for the red cars, I'll find the red cars. And if you're a blue car, keep it moving.
Yeah.
Right? The point that I'm making here is that I think I've proved to myself that the bit of shiny tinfoil is just tinfoil.
Yeah.
We don't need to collect it and bring it back like a crow.
Yep.
We can continue being the fill in the blank of bird you want to be.
Yeah, and gold doesn't feed you either.
That's right.
You can't eat gold. And that's, I think that's something that comes back to a sense of values as well. You pitch your values at a certain level. If you want to be the richest man on the dung heap, you can do that. Is it going to make you happy? Is it going to satisfy you? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But if you have a clear goal for personal growth and for your own personality and your own being, your own consciousness, and you achieve that, hey man, bonus, that's a lotto win.
Yeah, well, in that sense, if we talk about the role that, say, someone like me having the position of being on council might have, it's you then go like, is this an ego move? Does it fit into the greater picture? Does it serve you in a different way? Because I mean, in one sense you go, okay, well, I get to be part of the decision-making process. In another way you go like, well, it's an extra X amount of dollars per year that comes into my account. In another way, it's potential network that you're building for yourself for the future of your business, your life, your lifestyle. There's all these different ways of looking at it and trying to find a holistic, ethical approach to what does this actually do for me? And going back to the original vision, is this adding value to the city that my children are going to grow up in?
Yep, and the society that you live in. And there's a lot of things to stack up there. That's like building a structure there. And you've got to have a little bit of ego in there as well, because everybody's got ego. You can't just throw ego and say, I'm going to be, the meek don't inherit the earth generally. The meek get screwed. I don't know if I should say that, but you've got to have a level of ego and personality to get these things done. So, one, you are doing it for your civic duty. It's civic duty. Let's not, that's the fundamental. You're doing it because you want to make something of the place that you live, the place that you choose. You want to invest in the future because the future is in your children and your grandchildren and everything that comes after you.
Yep.
Sure, there's some personal growth. You must factor into it as well, because if you go into it and say, well, I'm going to be the same as I came out of it, well, then you're a mug. Your personal growth is good. Personal growth always will be good. And there's professional growth as well. At the end of it, having formed a new network, I'm going to be able to create another business which is contributing to economy, which helps build culture. I might employ another person, which gives them a job, all those things. So there's a lot of things to stack up. It's not just a simple way of saying, right, okay, I'm going to do it and that will be it. So I think, there's some people you wouldn't want anywhere near your local government council.
Of course, yeah.
Other people, you're trying to get them there and they say, nah, not my cup of tea, but you'd be so good at it. Nah. So, there's somewhere in between there we get, I think it's 9 people now, 8 and 1 it'll be at the next election. And hopefully we are able to have some turnover because I do honestly believe people who have been there too long, for any good they're done.
Right.
They need to leave and leave it to the next lot.
Name them, you won't.
Yeah. Well, it certainly won't be me. People have been asking me. I've been asked more than once in the last little bit whether or not I was going to stand for mayor again. And I said, absolutely no.
Feel free to not answer this question. Do you think that Jason will be a good person to get a second term in?
Jason's got some competition. Well, in actual fact, when I say he's got competition, he hasn't, because nobody else has put their hand up yet.
Really?
So by default, he's the best man for the job, having had 4 years in doing it.
Yeah.
But I certainly think that in Bunbury, we still need to move forward from where we are at the moment. And if Jason is able to bring his skills and his knowledge, and I've known him since he was a teenager, I've got a fair regard for Jason. I supported him at the last election, by the way. I think he needs to also know that he needs to move forward again.
Yeah.
Bunbury has a reputation, Jake, of doing things by halves. And I say that with due respect. I'm allowed to say it because I live here. My dad was born here. My grandfather's buried here.
Yeah.
So I'm allowed to criticise my own patch. And God help anybody else who has a crack at it. I'll take them on. But Bunbury has a reputation of being satisfied with half a job. And I think we need to get over that. And the Bunbury Business Workshop I went to recently, where I met some of the young crew coming through, they are intelligent. They're excited. They're hungry to make something of this town that has been for too long dominated by something that says close enough is good enough. And that's because we have a purple circle. What I call the purple circle of movers and shakers in Bunbury, who are the old guard.
Yeah.
Oh, no, she'll be right. No, it's the way we've always done it. No, man. The world has moved on since 1995.
Yep.
We've got a lot more excitement. We can do a lot more things. We can do it a lot better. And so Jason, being a young mayor, now has to make sure that he just doesn't rest on the laurels. I've done it for 4 years. I know how to do it. That's good. There is more blue sky in front of Bunbury.
Yep.
And we've got to use that.
I think because obviously Jason is not anymore a new dad, but still reasonably new parent. He has, to my belief, established his own business recently in the past 12 months.
Yeah, I think he's doing what he's doing on the side now. He's an accountant. He was with Eastman's, but he couldn't balance mayor and Eastman's at the same time. So I understand that he took a sabbatical from Eastman's. I can't speak for him because I don't know, but I don't, rather than heading towards a partner, he's now gone the other way. Be interesting to see what he does in actual fact, because I've known him as a teenager. I first met him as a teenager when he was playing cricket.
Yep.
So I've umpired him as a captain of his side. So as an umpire, you're looking around. Do you have control of the 11 blokes on the field? Are you making the right decisions? Are you reasonable? You don't go off and chewing your chops at somebody because they dropped a catch. You say, better luck next time. Do it right. Keep an eye on the ball. As his personal development or his professional development, whatever you like, his development per se, I've seen him come along as a leader.
Yep.
But leading councils is different from leading a cricket side. So you've still got to develop your skills. It's an interesting question you ask, because I know that there will be a lineup of people who want to be mayor of this town. I have not seen anybody yet who can do it better than the current person, that's Jason.
I think the point that I was making with he has a lot on his plate, being the mayor, being a new parent, being a new business owner.
Absolutely.
He also has youth on his side.
Yep.
Which is a big deal.
So you can measure it out a bit.
I really try and appropriate how much energy I have with how much energy my, the next generation doesn't have. Because obviously I don't have that comparison myself. And I just, this is a already 3-hour podcast. I'll be absolutely wrecked psychologically for the rest of the day. I know that. But I also can ride 30 kilometers on my bike on one wheel every day of the week and it not bother me.
Yeah. Different capacity.
The point that I make there is to be completely transparent, I feel like one part of me is like, can Jason do it? Everyone's telling me how crazy being a parent's going to be. And it's like, I know how hard it is to make and run a business. I know how hard it is to deal with just the things of being a good person.
Yep.
Friends going through a hard time, 2 hours on the phone, mum's birthday today, go for a walk, do all these things, that's a lot of energy. And then to be mayor on top of it.
Yeah.
I question, I know what I can achieve. Brother, can you achieve it?
Big responsibility it is. This is something that you are the soul, you are the representative of the soul of your town.
The buck stops.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And it's an excellent thing. I know that Jason has a lot of capacity for work. He's certainly not a bludger. I mean, he gets out, he knuckles down, he knows how to bat for a long time, he knows how to captain, he knows how to do things.
Yep.
I personally don't know what his ceiling is.
I think the thing that dog's going to go off in a second. Who's that, Lou? Is she there? I shall go. I do know. There you go. I'll let her calm her down. I didn't know how much I could achieve until I had to achieve it.
Yes, and my experience is the same. I've done a lot of things over my career, and I've had a lot of positions over my career, including chairs of boards, memberships of associations. I led up the Southwest Environment Centre for 2 terms as its convener.
Yep.
Back in another life, I've been a cricket umpire for 30 years before I gave it away. All of these things have overlapped.
Yep.
And I've often had that said to me, just, how do you do all this stuff? Well, I haven't had 5 kids under 10 sitting around waiting for my attention. My partner might argue that I should give her more attention, but she also works full-time, so she's got a life outside of my life, if you like. So we've got to retain that individual drive and what we want to do. I've had a very fortunate position that I've had the energy, and I've never done it as basically as a chore. It's always been a lifestyle.
Yeah.
So when I worked at work for the government, that was part of my lifestyle. I was a councillor while I was a public servant. Yep. At the same time, I'm chairing a board and member of 4 or 5 committees. It became a lifestyle. There was never a time when I thought to myself, fuck, I'm sick of this.
Got to go to work. Or
No, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
That's fortunate for me. I've been very, very lucky in my career. And even now, I'm still doing stuff. I've got another book in my computer at the moment. This will be my 3rd one. I write every day. I contribute somehow. Every now and then I'll tithe some dollars to a cause somewhere because I feel that that's worthy.
Yep.
So encompassing all of that, it's a lifestyle thing, Jake. There's the component over here. Sometimes one component is bigger than another, and, bless the family. I hope you have triplets.
Yeah.
I mean, no, but not say that.
Never hear that.
But to have that component becomes a larger part of your life for the period that it's going to go. I have grandchildren, for example, and one of my daughters has 1 child, and she feels sometimes a little unfulfilled in her career aspirations. And I said, hey, gal, don't worry about that. You're raising a child.
Yeah.
That is the biggest component of your life for the 18 years that
you get that.
And then it becomes ongoing, of course.
Yeah.
So you measure the components of your life against their value, and there's no value bigger than your own family.
Yeah, for sure.
And your the people you love. That is the biggest component. Everything else is, I just made another 100,000. Yeah, right.
Dude, this is the thing. I actually penalise myself for thinking and speaking about this as much as I do, but I am quite passionate about it. The connection between I'm not going to say the most important thing in my life is this business, but I do know the more importance that I give it, the better the things that are the most important in my life get to receive.
Yep.
Now, the practice or the skill, the repetition of treating this baby that I have now brought into childhood and trying to push into adolescence, that is Blxck, that is Outfit Co., the way that I make money, the more undivided attention I give that at the appropriate time it's meant to get that attention, the better the result I get for the shit that actually matters, which is the time that I get with my fiance and my dog.
Yeah, yeah.
The practice of that structure is what gives me all of the belief in myself that I'll be just the parent that I need to be.
Yep.
And there'll be hard times and there'll be things that I don't understand and lessons that I have to learn and compromises that I have to. Okay.
Yep.
I'm there.
Yep.
I'm already there. I'm already practicing. And yes, I know there's an emotional connection to that child that I won't understand until I have it. Then I can't understand it till I have it. Until then, I've got this.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, and that's the best way to look at it. It's a journey. And you don't want to just be looking at the end of the journey because you'll lose the vista along the way.
Right.
There's a lot of things to learn, a lot of things to appreciate, love and beauty along the way. I mean, I'll get back to Leonard Cohen again. Cohen was a great poet and he depicted things. And one of his famous lines was, there's a crack in everything, that's how the light gets in. And I'm thinking to myself, man, how did you come up with that? But along the way in his poetry, he speaks, and I use the term again, love and beauty all the way along, and of the journey, of the road, of the view as you get to where you want to go. You know, you can walk from here to the mountain, and we talked about a mountain before, and you can see the mountain from every different aspect as you walk towards it.
Yeah.
And the beauty along the way is as good, if not better, as the beauty at the end of the journey.
Right.
And I think we've heard that there's probably a million sayings, probably including in the Bible, about the journey that you take.
Yeah.
And the way that you make that journey is life along the way. Just don't see it as an end point.
Well, that's sort of the, going back to that idea that the Bible is somehow a tutorial on how to, psychology, to mentally appropriate the experience that is living.
Yep.
And, like you talk about freeing the slaves out of Egypt after thousands of years being enslaved. And it's like I tie that story to the relationship that I've had with particular addictions in the past. And not that I've really suffered from addiction, but there have been things that I've been addicted to, sugar, to bad decisions, to coffee, all these things. And I still, obviously I still have coffee with sugar, right? And I think the ability to understand that they had to be slaves for thousands of years to understand why being freed from slavery was such a big deal.
Yeah, right. I'm with you there. There's a lot of metaphors on that one.
So then you go, well, what is the power of being sober if you've not been addicted?
Yeah. Well, true. You haven't got that juxtaposition, if I can use the term. It's like banging your head against the wall, and when it stops hurting.
Right.
Hey, I don't like that. I know what it was like to bang my head against the wall. Now I'm not doing it. I'm in a great spot.
Yeah.
You're right about the Bible as a tutorial, and there are other books, of course, that can be tutorials for life as well.
For sure.
I hesitate to name too many of them, but those great cult books like Trout Fishing in America or Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, these type of...
Oh, interesting.
Oh, well, the latter I tried reading 3 times before I read it, and I just couldn't get it. And when I did get it, I thought, light bulb went off. But anyway, that's another story. But, using things as tutorials to help you be a better person, there's nothing wrong with that. Gets back to AI. I was going to ask you that, actually, probably still on the podcast, if you fed this 3-hour podcast into AI and asked it for a 2-page synopsis,
you can ask it to wrap it up in 5 words.
Yeah,
is
that right? See, this is where my technology is still not up with it. I mean, I'm a fan. I've got the iPad, I've got the computer, I've got the phone. I had two screens at work when I was working, all of those type of things, but. I'd be interested to see what wrap up it could be in, let's say, 300 words, which is a page.
I tell you what, here's the role that AI plays right now. So this is recorded on 2 cameras and 2 microphones.
Yep.
I feed that into Premiere Pro, which is a video editing software. AI then interprets it, matches the audio to the video. It then cuts it, your camera to my camera, as to who's speaking. So when you get the end result, it's you speaking, me speaking, as in the visual sense.
Yep.
So when you're talking, you see you on the screen. When I'm talking, you see me on the screen. I export it. I upload it to YouTube. I feed that link into another AI that then creates 30 to 40, 30-second to 90-second clips that I can then choose. It automatically creates the title, the caption, and the hashtag. You can just copy and paste a whole lot across to whatever platform you want to post it on.
Yeah, right.
I then get the transcript that is pulled out of this either by YouTube or the AI and put that into another AI and say, just break this down into 100 words, 1,000 words, 300 words. And then this is where I'm at now. I then want to use that to auto-populate a blog post that I can put into an email and send to all of my customers every month. Here's what we've been talking. Here's who I've spoken to. Here's the topics that we hit. Here's the links if you want to learn more. And if you want to buy any shirts off me, here's the AI link that automatically creates the order and sends me the email.
Man, that's magic.
It's magic.
I'm astounded at this stuff. And I've come from a time when we used slide rules, Jake.
Yeah.
And, almost like chipping into a piece of rock, like the 10 Commandments came down on the tablets.
You know what's crazy? I mean, at the moment, my biggest learning curve that I'm experiencing in the business is understanding how to implement AI into my systems. So at the moment, we essentially operate off manually made job cards and a database that is multiple Excel spreadsheets that all their own sort of placeholder.
Yep.
So you go, hey, I want 5 of these shirts, 10 of those pants, and I go into those individual price lists and how many are you getting? Are you getting 30? Okay, it falls into this, and then I put that into this job card over here, and I get my calculator out and then enter do this, right? I'm now looking at a database, a CRM, that unifies all of that by feeding all of my spreadsheets and all of my job cards to the AI and asking it to generate that system for me.
Right.
So that when you come in and say, I want this, that, and the other, I copy your email, give it to the AI, and it spits out what the order looks like.
Yeah, that is truly magic. Speaking of magic, I've got to go into town, so I'm going to have to love you and leave you.
Beautiful.
May I say this has been a very stimulating conversation.
How exciting.
I'm rewarded as I walk out the door, and I'm going to be thinking, wow, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, there's been some magic moments. Thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation.
Thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely. Is there anything that you want to promote, book?
Not at this stage, Jake.
No.
I'm actually due at Sue Thompson's, Sue Chapman Thompson. Who is that? Sue Chapman's office. In election starts tomorrow.
Yeah.
With the pre-polling, I'm captain of the booth at the Sea Scouts. Good. So I've got to pick up the package, which I think is a table, a chair, an umbrella,
a sash,
a bag of goodies, and a few T-shirts and how to vote cards.
Yeah, beautiful.
So that's my next mission. My partner is in Sydney at the moment. She's been away for a few days. She's away for another few days. So I'm home alone with the animals. The rabbit, yes, Victor. I let him out this morning and gave him some Special K.
Beautiful.
He loves his Special K.
Yeah, amazing.
Okay.
All right, guys, be good to your mum because we are out. Woo, goodness. Wasn't that a podcast and a half? Don't forget, if you want to support the show, financially that is, you jump on blxck.com.au and get yourself a T-shirt or a hat. The ones that are available right now are only available for the month of April, and they're going to be changing next month. Made them super affordable, and also every single dollar that you spend goes to actually supporting this podcast grow. So be part of the